Stop that. Stop that. Stop that. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. We came for one man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the. I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man so tough when mans keep walking. Yeah, just too sharp with the prize. White girls, let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution. Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
We played a while ago the Stephen A. Smith sound talking about Bronny, and I want to get the opinions of the fathers here in the room about what's happening, because I've heard throughout my life in journalism people say some form of there's a line on personal criticism. Don't make it personal. And the line moves, right? Because everyone's definition of what is personal is a little different. But if you attack someone's son on television and they're a professional athlete and it ends up sounding like this, you might want to prepare for the confrontation that Stephen A. found himself at the center of as the weekend began. Listen to this sound.
I'm really, really trying to be as respectful as I possibly can be towards LeBron James. One of the top 2 or 3 players in the history of basketball, number 2 in my eyes. A treasure to the game of basketball that we should and will all miss when he is gone. I am pleading with LeBron James as a father. Stop this. Stop this. We all know that Bronny James is in the NBA because of his dad. The first game of the season, opening night, the Griffeys in attendance, father-son duo playing in an NBA game for the first time, an absolutely positively wonderful story. And then reality sets in.
It remains jarring to see Chris Russo look that jaundiced because the lighting is that bad.
That felt like an episode of General Hospital.
I want to ask you guys about this, where acting and entertainment start infringing on where it is that we head with some of this stuff. Because as news is leaking that Stephen A. has re-upped at ESPN for 5 years, $100 million plus, I'm going to assume that Stephen A. is going to be given some form of leeway over scheduling at ESPN, that he's going to be able to put his stuff where Around the Horn used to be. And at the game on Friday, LeBron finally courtside while Stephen A. is sitting with Ari Emanuel and Larry David, because he's climbed to a cartoon stratosphere where he's with the really famous people. And it's good for Stephen A.'s business to have LeBron confront him courtside. But I want to talk about the acting in some of this, because the sound that we played on Stephen A. was even worse than that the first time we played, because it was 3 minutes and we cut it down. But here is LeBron James talking to Richard Jefferson. I thought Richard Jefferson was security, not Richard Jefferson, because I'm just looking at it from the back.
The little earpiece, he does kind of look like a Secret Service guy.
Yeah, I thought he was complaining to security about Stephen A., but he's complaining to Richard Jefferson, a colleague of Stephen A., about this. The sound's not great, and he's covering his mouth as he learned to do down here with Dwayne Wade, but people could pick up that he's saying that the part that he's objecting to, I'm pleading with you as a father, that's the line. What's the line on personal? Tell me, when your son is a professional athlete and you're the most famous athlete in America, what's the line as a father?
I think there is no line. I think everybody in this case is right. Stephen A. Smith has every right to criticize and say what he did, not thinking that Bronny James is ever going to amount to anything. I mean, it's harsh, but if it's his truth, he's allowed to say it. It's his job to say it. I think LeBron James is perfectly entitled to get his back up because it's so personal. And I would feel the same if the role was involving myself and Christopher. I also think Bronny James is perfectly entitled to give basketball his best shot despite his father. We're going to see the same thing with Tiger Woods' kid in a couple of years as he advances in golf. People are going to write and say he's never going to beat Tiger Woods. The kid's still allowed to give it his shot.
Agreed that you have these freedoms, but I would like to have some lines here around something that has no precedent. This is not something any of us have ever seen a son getting a shortcut to the league when he's the son of the greatest athlete in the sport and the greatest athlete economy in the sport. And we've been making content off of this family for 20 years. It continues to provide, as LeBron is the oldest player in the league. And I'm not a father, so I don't know how emotional this would make me. But I believe that doesn't cross the line. It's theatrical. It's what's being rewarded now in media. Where can you find the confrontation? Turn up your true feelings wherever they are that are at a 5. Turn them up to 10. And the confrontation courtside isn't something that Stephen A. Smith minds. In fact, he understands it. He understands why a father would go after him on that. But once his son signs professionally, I don't know what the rules are supposed to be. I legitimately don't have an understanding of where it is that you can put the line when Stephen A. Smith is saying on the front end, he's offering all the respect on the front end that softens the criticism, but then he just says flatly that this is nepotism. This is a child who does not belong in the sport. He's not even treating Bronny like an adult or a professional. He's treating him like a child that doesn't belong.
And it's up to Bronny to prove him wrong, right? I mean, it's up to Bronny to prove him wrong. That's why I get the feeling of all three principals in this matter. I don't think Stephen A's wrong. I don't think LeBron's wrong for getting his back up either because he's talking as a father, not as a teammate.
He's also made this a lot harder for Bronny than he has to while making it easier for Bronny than most people have, right? Because, like, everything around Bronny getting to the NBA was kind of like, okay, like, this isn't normal. Like, saying, hey, you know what, if the Lakers or if any other team drafts Bronny, he's going to go play in Australia. Like, that's not normal for someone who is in Bronny's position, right? And he goes and he plays in the first game of the year and they have the cool moment. Like, it's okay for LeBron to be mad, but it's also okay for LeBron to be wrong about being mad about this situation because Bronny is a professional and he's not being targeted, I don't think. He's only being targeted in the sense that if someone else is in Bronny's position, we wouldn't be talking about that person at all. Like, not at all. The only reason they're talking about it is because it's Bronny's son, but also because LeBron keeps kind of putting him out there saying, there's no player that's better than Bronny that I'm seeing in the NBA right now. And having him partially be in the G League sometimes, then sometimes in the NBA when the G League is traveling. And, like, it's just a weird arrangement. And I think in the clips that, I mean, we haven't seen all of the Stephen A. clips, but in the clips that have been out there, Stephen A. said as much as, you know, I think that he should go to the G League and he should develop into an NBA player. I'm not saying that he's not going to be at some point in time. He's just not right now, which isn't crazy criticism, but, like, you understand why LeBron would get sensitive about that, but also he's wrong. Let's not forget they are the highest scoring father-son duo in NBA history. I just feel like that should be said.
Yeah, I love doing that to Hank and Tommy Aaron, the most home runs hit among brothers. So wait, let's examine what it is that Billy's saying there, because he's saying LeBron's wrong, but I don't think that fathers think that other fathers are wrong in the spaces where the soft emotional stuff
I'm a father.
is.
I said he's wrong.
The father thing is so friggin' flimsy to me. Everything that Billy said, like, when Stephen A. decided to do this, the timing was so goddamn weird because it was when Bronny was in the G League and actually playing well. Like, he just rehashed something out of nowhere, and he's like, as a father, I implore you, and all of this is made for TV. It's just dumb.
Okay, you say that, but made for TV dumb represents what percentage these days of sports content when the games aren't being played? Anybody got any theories on
Well,
what?
I know I would like to cede my time over to Jess. I know you pose this just to fathers, but like this is a really dumb thing. And I'm kind of angry at our show for leading the show with this really dumb thing.
I'm a father of a daughter, but she's a dog, and also I'm a mother of her. But
That doesn't make you a father or a
okay,
mother.
then I'll wait until the next segment.
Okay.
I would like Jess's opinion.
Well, she doesn't want to give it, and I can't force her to give it.
Very
And Mike-
progressive
Mike-
of you.
Mike
Well, you
can't
know,
force
you didn't
her
want to
to
give it to
The
me.
gambit
You said
was
when the show started, you want to hear from all the dads, which is literally everyone except me. So I'm gonna wait
And
until
me.
that's no
And
longer.
me.
Well, Dan gave his opinions.
I disagree with Mike. I think it's a very valid conversation to have. I think it interests a lot of people, fathers and non-fathers, parents and non-parents. And the rule of thumb with athletes, right, is always my family's off limits. Okay, criticize me all you want, but don't bring my family into your whole media circus.
Not when they're on the roster.
Well, that's the
But
thing.
this is
That's where the
different.
line
That's my point.
changes.
He's more than just family. He's a teammate. He's trying to be an NBA player. He's volunteered to follow in the biggest footsteps in sports. So it's way beyond family, LeBron.
It's funny, though, that we can all acknowledge, wow, that was a shortcut to get to the NBA, obviously. But then upon arrival, it's a little bit harder for him than it is for most because of everything that surrounds him.
Well, the thing that's dumb about it, right, is that like the NBA is full of fringe players as like the last person on the roster who just don't get playing time and basically just sit on the bench all the time, right? And like that's fine if the Lakers want that to be Bronny's role, but you're really costing him development. Like, if you actually are taking him seriously as an NBA prospect, an NBA player, it suits him better to actually get legitimate playing time in the G League than just being a fringe player that plays in blowouts or sits on the bench for the Lakers just so he can be on the team with his dad and he can check in and they can have that cool fabricated moment every once in a while. Like, if you want him to actually develop LeBron, it's better for him to play and develop than be a meaningless player on this team.
Well, let me ask you this, though. Develop what? Because
His
if it's,
game, I
well,
mean-
but if it's just basketball, fine. But if it's the business of being a James and be around,
That's not a thing.
Well,
Like, that's not a real thing.
Kids follow around their dads in employment all of the time to
But
learn
daddy's
the
going to
business.
be done in 2 years, and then what? Like,
Well-
if he wants to be his own man and he wants to be in the league, he should develop as a player. And there's stories of players who go and develop in the G League and then come out and are productive NBA players. He's wasting time, honestly, of development if he's just sitting on the roster for them to continue to have these moments. Look how cool it is they're on the floor together.
He's bound to fail, right? Bronny is, and he must know it more acutely than anyone does. 2 years from now, he may be playing on a team in China. It doesn't mean he's a failure. He's only a failure relative to the impossible footsteps of his father. If Bronny James is in business school right now, studying to be a CPA,
He is in business school right now.
if he's studying to be a CPA and wants nothing to do with basketball, it's not like Stephen A. Smith is criticizing him then by saying he's afraid of the footsteps. He should be in the NBA. No, he's in the NBA or trying to be, so it's valid criticism.
Mike is not wrong when he looks at all of this and says after 20 years of LeBron coverage, really? OKC beats Denver by 20 yesterday. Cleveland is in the middle of its third more than 12-game winning streak of the season. And I think we would all acknowledge that a Cleveland OKC final is a disaster for the sport, even though those are the two best teams.
I mean, don't get me wrong. As a father, I also don't want to talk about Oklahoma City, Cleveland matching up in the NBA final. I think the most interesting thing that's happening in the sport is still like the ramifications of the Luka trade, what it's done to the Dallas market, how they've totally unraveled there. I think that's like an interesting drama, and LeBron is a part of that. This one just seems entirely manufactured from the timing. I think we all know what this is. If you wanted to keep LeBron James in purple and gold, part of the deal was you were going to pay his son $8 million and try to develop him in your franchise, and everything else around it is just BS.
We will get to what is happening in Dallas in a second. Dallas yesterday finished the game with 7 healthy players. Started with 9, finished with 7. It's been an unmitigated disaster in Dallas. But this back and forth yesterday, because there are other things happening in basketball. Golden State is 11-1 when Jimmy Butler plays. Can you give me the stat of the day here real quick? Speaking of Golden State, if you could just play the short version of the stat of the day real quick.
Start of the day, start of the day, it is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day, it is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day, it is your start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day, it is the start of the day.
Stat of the day is presented by Miller Lite.
Steph Curry has not lost at Madison Square Garden in about 4,400 days. It was 4,388 about 12 days ago, but I don't know if it was exactly 12 days ago. So it's about 4,400 straight days. And if you're looking for more NBA drama, Skip Bayless says, quote, "The more I watch him at age 36, the more KD looks mentally semi-retired to me." To which Kevin Durant responds, "Bleep it. We're both washed, Skip. It was a great run." Perfect.
Was a good run.
Perfect
Both.
response to that.
Great.
Let's play some free Nico chants that are breaking out all over Dallas.
Well, fire Nico.
I'm sorry. Fire Nico. That free Nico is totally different.
Yeah.
Fire Nico. Let's play
He
some
may
of those.
feel like it's a freedom of sorts.
This is that FC Dallas game.
How much of this do we have? Because basically, at this point, Nico exists as a name only to be 2 syllables in chants.
Now we go over to medieval times in Dallas, where they were also chanting Fire Nico.
Are they jousting? Is there a joust? Come on, medieval times can't still be doing well.
Big year last year.
Is medieval time? That doesn't look like it's doing that well from the crowd there. What are they preparing? Are they waiting for a joust? Is that what they're waiting
This
for?
seems pre-joust.
I want to ask you guys a serious question, okay? Because we laughed about the idea of trading Luka because of beer and hookah. But I want to ask you guys seriously. If you have to make a $300 million investment in a 25-year-old, where's your line on too much beer and hookah? Like if it's your money and you've got to make sure that that body is still right at 34, the way that it was at 24, what's too much beer and hookah if that's the reason that they traded him? What's the amount that I have to put in front of you where I say you've got a 25-year-old superstar, but you're willing to trade him and make your fan base, your customers, really angry on the loyalty front because you're going to tell them, I'm afraid of his beer and hookah habit?
Me, I want a happy player who I trust to perform and to be in shape enough to perform. I'm not gonna make him go on a scale once a week so that he doesn't gain 3 pounds. If he's performing on the court, do your thing. That's why we're
But
paying
what
you
about
money.
the investment going forward, though? Because there are any number of players in there. I remember the Marlins had this fear with Miguel Cabrera because he would show up at photo shoots.
They were wrong.
Yeah, they were wrong. He would show up at photo shoots and he would, have too much to drink, and they were worried about how it is that would age, and they didn't have to worry about it until he got into his late 30s. But if it's a concern that's expressed in the fitness arena, and if Luka has if we're willing, all of us as people with, Cheeto dust on our fingers watching the games to say, hey, Luka's body at 25 doesn't look like he's taking care of it though, as scientifically as a professional athlete in the modern age would.
Okay, but if you're worried about Luka staying on the court, why did you trade for Anthony Davis?
Fair enough. Mark Cuban said he would be having a different conversation. He said they got too little. First public comments from Mark Cuban. Says they got too little, and if it had been exactly what they got, plus 4 unconditional first-round picks, then people would have been having a different conversation around this. They did not make something that was better for their future anywhere except creating salary cap space.
Helpful, Mark Cuban. Yes, if they got a much better deal in return, fewer people would be upset. Wholeheartedly agree.
How does he still exist in this world where like he sold the team, but he's like we're still craving his thoughts and opinions?
These
on
are late though.
the
These arrived.
Well, because everyone also publicly is saying, "Hey, Mark, shut up, stop talking." Like everywhere he's trying to help someone talk, they're like, "Oh, Mark, a little less talking, please."
I'm
Like,
sure
you're
that's
making
part of
things
the
worse.
agreement, don't you think? Part of the agreement for the sale is like, I'm not going to be in the public space. It's kind of like when historically a president leaves office, they kind of disappear for a little bit and respect the transition of power, and they don't pop up because they know what that job's like, and it's a courteous thing to do.
I have not heard a whole lot of George Bush's opinions on how it is that he feels about
He
Donald
just
Trump.
came out of hiding. He literally just put something out from his presidential library about Ukraine specifically. And, I mean, you can do some digging and know exactly where the Bush family sides by their absence at stuff and whatnot. There were a lot of legacy Republicans that weren't at the RNC. Amazing way to make this political, but I think I'm the one to blame there. But, like, even he came out for the Russia-Ukraine thing. But historically, people that share that office kind of just go off into the distance and don't often offer up criticisms of whoever just replaced them.
That's an ego thing by them, right? Because like, who wakes up in 2025 and says, "You know what? I really wonder what George Bush thinks about this issue."
Well, in this one, I can understand.
I mean, Bush did not endorse the Republican candidate in the last election, which is in and of itself is a pretty jarring statement. But getting back to Luka for just a minute, the time to worry about his health habits and his future conditioning is when you're negotiating the contract and signing him. It's not after you lavish him with this deal and then you're second guessing. Hey, you look a little chubby, Luka. Well,
they didn't lavish him with the biggest of the deals though. The Supermax deal is the one that was on the table. Like they didn't the deal they had him under was relatively at value.
But my point is, when you negotiate any contract, especially a bigger one, that's what you put into the contract. You can't go skydiving. Please don't ride a motorcycle. You know, stay healthy. Do this. Do
You can't
that.
say anything about beer and hookah though.
Sure, you can.
You can't.
You can negotiate anything in a contract.
You can't, not a collectively bargained contract. You can't control how much or when someone is drinking. You can have some of their freedoms where there are liabilities, where there are dangers. You can't negotiate beer or absence of beer into a contract.
What are we doing with hookah? Is it because like it's got a long cord to it, so it maybe signifies that someone appears lazier when they're doing it? Because I would have more of an issue with cigarettes than with a hookah.
Okay, what I'm doing with hookah is just general late night snacking. I'm just if you're into the beer and the hookah, then you're probably eating snacks at midnight that aren't clean salmon protein.
I don't think it gives you munchies.
I'm not saying munchies. I'm just saying late night habits. I'm not even talking about there's some sort of link between hookah and snacks. I'm talking about there's link between hookah and beer and midnight and snacks.
I think you're doing general body posture when you're smoking a hookah. It's just often people lean back and they're just very cash about it, as opposed to someone standing upright just taking a big rip off a dart.
Put it on the poll, please, at Le Batard Show. If someone is dabbling in beer and hookah at midnight, do you assume they're also snacking? Yes or no?
I thought hookah was like a taboo thing for teenagers. Like, there's full-grown adults that are smoking hookahs.
Yeah, there's hookah bars. I don't have an issue with it. But, yeah, it does give off a little Snorlax type of vibe more than cigarettes does.
You guys are, I'm sorry, but you guys are doing something here that I'm not doing. This is all about the general vibes around hookah. The area rug that's there when you go inside.
That's what I'm assuming you're doing.
Yes.
Sultany.
I'm just
Go on and say it.
The
It reminds you of a sultan.
A sloppy...
And there aren't many skinny sultans.
A sloppy sultan who doesn't have a lot of discipline in his life, or a lot of people who tell him not to snack at midnight.
You just love that hookah rhymes with Luka.
I do love that.
That's
yes.
where it begins.
You don't have many players throughout...
Hookah Doncic.
You don't have many players throughout basketball history that rhyme this perfectly with hookah. You got an NFL wide receiver named Puka, but you don't have a lot of options here when it comes to rhyming with hookah. The Cleveland Cavaliers, the aforementioned Cleveland Cavaliers, are retiring Kevin Love's 0.
Wow.
They're retiring Kevin Love's number. They made that so miserable for him while he was there. He was so unhappy while he was there, except when they were holding up the trophy. He had no idea what he was signing up for. He was enjoying being the league's leading rebounder, being the leading scorer on the 8th-seeded Minnesota Timberwolves. He gets traded to Cleveland, and now his legacy is secure in Cleveland. His number 0 is going to be retired forever.
I think I know I was guilty of it. I was doing the direct comparison to how bad I felt the Heat got it, and all the supporting cast of characters. Like, Bosh had it way more difficult than Kevin Love ever did. He had a relatively charmed existence when compared directly to Chris Bosh. However, in a vacuum, it didn't seem fun. Didn't seem fun for Kevin Love. Having to be subtweeted occasionally by LeBron James. Whoever's running Kevin's socials still seems to remember that.
They're probably retiring his jersey now because they're afraid of what the person running his social is going to say soon, and they're not going to be able to retire it in like a year. Why are they retiring him while he's active? That's weird, right? Like on another team.
They're trying to get LeBron back. That's why they did the whole like Zajunas Ilgauskas thing. Like you're retiring this jersey just because you want LeBron in the barn.
I'd be more hesitant to retire my 0. Well, maybe I should be less hesitant to retire my 0 because so few players are going to want the 0. I would think that the 0 is something that you'd want to protect more than the other numbers, but maybe I have that wrong. There aren't that many 0s in the history of basketball.
Why wouldn't they do this for? It's actually gained popularity. Gilbert Arenas was huge for that number. I think you'll look at most rosters and find 0s. It's become in vogue. But, I think that if they're retiring any active players, why don't they retire LeBron's?
Too many numbers being retired in sports. I really believe that. And I think basketball's a bigger culprit than most sports. I'm looking at the career record of Kevin Love. He made 2 All-Star teams with Cleveland. His best years were with Minnesota. I just don't see that he's an all-time great for the Cavaliers. I really don't.
Dude, he won a championship. And remember, he was actually playing lockdown defense at the end for Steph Curry. Key contributor on a championship team with Hall of Fame in his future. That guy's getting his jersey retired.
I don't tend to tell regional entities that have a personal relationship with their athletes when they should or shouldn't retire someone's number or should or shouldn't put up a statue. I'm not particularly interested in policing any of those things. I did just notice that Kevin Love seems to be on the line where some people like Greg would say that's a bridge too far. I just don't think that when in your
Udonis
town
Haslem.
you have Udonis Haslem, thank you, Billy, that you can say anything to anybody else about what a personal relationship is with an athlete, because I think Udonis might be on the cusp of getting a statue, not just a number retired.
Yeah, that might be a bridge too far, as you called it. But
Is that a report?
Udonis, like, he's career leader across like some very important stats for what has become like, since its inception, a storied NBA franchise in Miami. You can understand that. I can certainly understand Kevin Love. How long was he in Cleveland for? 6 seasons? He made it to an All-Star game twice in that uniform, won an NBA championship, was the third most important player. Yeah, I get it, but they also had 2 pretty great ones on their team. That's an easy jersey retirement.
Yeah, eight seasons, 2 All-Star games. To me, that's not jersey retirement. In the case of UD, that's the father of Heat culture. That's the embodiment of Heat culture, and Heat culture has become such a brand with this franchise that you've got to honor the guy who you think
The rest of the
embodies that.
country would laugh at the idea of Udonis being respected that way.
Well, tough shit for the rest of the country. He's also the all-time rebounding leader, I believe,
He is.
and so that's not nothing.
Is there a way to raise? Is there a way to raise the culture to the rafters?
No.
Like, what would we raise?
Just Udonis. Just put him.
That's
just
right.
put him in the rafters.
String him
just
up.
sit. No, we're not gonna. We're just gonna sit him up.
No,
there.
Greg.
Right.
There will be
Dan
no,
brought us here.
There will be no stringing of
Well, you put
anybody
a
up.
rope under his arm.
No.
And you lift
We're
him.
fine.
I blame Dan for this.
Greg, you know what I was thinking would be more meaningful? Instead of retiring the number 0, what if the Cavs just said, you know what? We're retiring Love. We will never have another player named Love on our team. And you just start retiring last names. So no one with that name can ever play for your team again because that's how meaningful they were.
After Dan Gilbert's letter, they should have retired Hate. They should have just we put that letter in the rafters and retire retire Hate forevermore in Cleveland, the way that they retired Unity in Kansas City when they started their Super Bowl run. Can we get some of Billy's calls from the weekend? Because I was told that Billy made another secret foray with very little fanfare, very little publicity into calling FIU baseball, and I'm told that we not only have a 2-minute montage on all Billy things being just maximum Billy, but we also have, and Greg Cote was sent this, but he couldn't access it because Yeti sent it to him. He couldn't actually hear what was a legendary home run call during the FIU-FAU game that we'll get to after the 2-minute montage here of Billy just being maximum Billy.
Not an ideal start. I don't know what I just said. LaPointe's not a threat to run at second base. If I'm Rundy, if I'm FIU, I just pay him no mind, even if he's dancing off second base. Just go right after LaRue here. They're not even covering second, so.
They understand the assignment from Billy Gill. And it's ball one here from Rundy.
Must be blasting through the speakers today, you know?
These guys do hear what we say.
Oh, no.
They go back and listen to the broadcast. Both teams do.
Uh-oh.
So bear that in mind.
You guys are all trying your best.
Amazing how the tone switches. He goes from the guy's not a threat to run to, wow, tremendous effort.
Yeah.
The little thing called accountability.
Good double, Dylan. No betting.
The mathematics of 3 more than 1, but no betting.
Yeah, on baseball. Pete Rose learned that the hard way, Corey.
Yeah, he sure did.
Yeah.
Sorry, he's going to get pardoned. Or whatever. Payoff pitch. Ildy goes after it. Littman's got back-to-back Ks.
Crowd roaring.
He's going to get pardoned or whatever. Kindness, I think, was appropriate.
You can dive in more if you want.
I mean, I think you nailed it. Pardoned or whatever.
Last week we were talking about the new FIU Vice hat.
Okay, that's different.
Which carried over to the midweek game where we had a conversation about the Vice hat.
Mm-hmm.
Ball one. So in reality,
okay,
we're discussing caps probably about half the games to this point in the year.
Yeah. And that's no cap.
What's that mean?
You know what, Corey, if you don't know.
Yes? I'm just old?
I'm not going to tell you.
It's all right. Fortunately, I do know what cap means.
Do you?
I do. Cap, Riz, skibbity toilet.
What?
Knocked down by Andrews. A little PFP work right out of the gate. 1 pitch, 1 out. Andrews helping it himself.
Well, PFPI gala, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true.
We will get to this home run call involving a legend in a moment, but I just want to play the astute and expansive elaboration from Billy, who decides this is the time he's going to be efficient instead of yammering and wordy when asked or bringing up the pardon of Pete Rose.
Sorry, he's going to get pardoned. Or whatever.
That's good commentary from Billy entering the political waters with excellent color commentary. Play that the whole thing again so that the play-by-play man could see and hear how little support he has from his color man here.
Sorry, he's going to get pardoned. Or whatever.
Chris, how do you feel about this home run call that your father has not yet heard?
I love it. I mean, it's nice to, like, whenever you have, like, FAU here in the home run call, they pay respect to an FAU legend, and it's just cool to see that they can do that type of thing.
Focus.
His first home run. That kind of swing, that kind of thing in Florida Atlantic. A power surge on getaway day.
And you know it.
That whole thing is such a pathetic home run call. There's no crowd noise. There's Billy setting up and selling the Greg Cote home run call. Let me hear the whole thing again.
His first home run. That kind of swing, that kind of thing in Florida Atlantic. A power surge on getaway day.
And you know it.
Oh, that's great.
You did call him a foul out on the prowl earlier, too.
Nice.
Yeah, it was a big day for you yesterday,
I'm
Greg.
telling you what, that goes right on my tombstone.
What?
It does?
Oh, yeah.
You've said that over the course of the last few years about 3 dozen
It's a
things.
crowded
It's
tombstone.
getting your tombstone.
Well, hold on a second. For the record, let's mark up your tombstone right now, just so that worst case scenario, we don't botch this. What would you like it to say?
I guess the lead would have to be 8-time PFPI champion.
Okay.
For now.
Where's I eat butt all the time?
Maybe the back of the tombstone
Hell yeah.
near the dirt.
Yeah, that's a good place for it.
I wasn't even thinking of those terms.
You weren't, were
No,
you?
that kind of thing.
Okay, excellent.
That kind of life.
Yeah.
You heard mentioned on there the Miami Vice hats, which brings up some new hats that are now out of stock all over the internet. This Texas baseball cap that replaces the X with a T for tetas, the Spanish word, the strongest and most offensive of the Spanish words for boobs, because I don't think the other word I can't say. It's one of the 7 words you're not allowed to say on broadcast, evidently. I can't. Can I say that?
That still exists, those 7
Let's
words?
just not. Let's not.
Yeah,
I say roll the dice.
don't take his advice. But I also don't know what you're talking about. I don't either. So partly.
That's why I'm curious. We
do
can
me a
bleep it
favor.
after. I just
Write
wanna
it down
learn.
on an index card
Yeah.
and just slide it over to me.
I mean, 4 letters and 2 T's like that does, except in English.
Yeah, just whisper it, and that way it won't be as
Yeah,
bad.
let's look at
yeah,
the.
you can say that.
Let's look at the pioneering hat that created the tetas hat, which is this A's hat that is also a great hat that just adds an S to the A's hat and makes it ass, so that now we have 2 hats that are T and A.
This was a part of a whole new design for New Era, where they would take one of the logos and just slap it in the middle of a script logo. And for some teams, it works kind of cool. Like Chicago is all right. Cincinnati makes some sense. But some teams like the Mariners are unfortunate because you just have a hat that says Masters on it. There's also an Angels hat that kind of looks really close to anals. But the best one, and the one that has certainly already received quite a bit of fanfare and is now out of stock, is Tetas.
You've tried to get it?
Yeah, I tried to purchase it because that's a hilarious hat, and someone clearly didn't know what they were doing. You got to have someone bilingual across that. You have a hat that says boobs, essentially, which is going to be mad popular, and it already has been. But some of these designs, the quality control really makes you think.
Chris, play that home run call again, please.
Or your YouTube volume slider. First pitch swinging. Driven to center. With pace. The foul owl on the prowl, John Schroeder.
Yeah.
His first home run. That kind of swing, that kind of thing in Florida Atlantic. A power surge on getaway day.
And you know it.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by Smirnoff. We do game days. Please drink responsibly. The Smirnoff Company, New York, New York.
We will check in with Roy from the Panthers press conference. Marchand has been introduced. He's wearing the red. He says it brings out the color in his eyes. He will be on the road trip with the Panthers as it begins in Boston, where he will say hello to his ex-teammates, and that one's going to be something that hurts Boston fans.
That's logistically stupid, right? Make him come down here for a press conference just to go right back to Boston? What did we do that for? Just wait.
That's a good point. It's not like he's playing right now.
Why did he fly down here?
What's the hurry?
They could have just introduced him in Boston.
I mean, he's on the team now. I'm sure he's looking for an apartment around here. The idea that he's just going to stay up there for 3 weeks.
You want to delay practice. You want to delay onboarding with a new franchise.
He'll get it.
I mean, I don't want him playing regardless, so go for it.
I want to talk to you guys about some of the movement in football over the weekend. DK Metcalf requested a trade in Seattle. The Geno Smith era in Seattle as he gets traded to the Raiders, and the Raiders say we want stability at coach and quarterback, and so we're going to get Geno Smith and Pete Carroll. I think I can argue that Geno Smith is a top 10 quarterback. It's a bit of a rhetorical trick. At one point, I said that Rex Grossman was one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL because he slid in at number 10 when he was making it to the Super Bowl. Geno Smith was unlucky in a couple of fronts. He turned the ball over more than he should have, according to the metrics. He had 15 interceptions, but he was unlucky. He was pretty good with the football, and pretty good with the football even though that offensive line is bad. I don't think in Las Vegas with Bowers that they have the skill guys that Seattle had. But I ask you guys what you make of Geno Smith and the Geno Smith era in Seattle. Do you guys remember anything? Did that era win a playoff game? He could throw for 4,000 yards. He was better than any of us thought he would ever be. And I can make the argument that he fits in the top 10 quarterbacks in the NFL. You made a face.
Yeah, I don't think anybody other than you is calling Geno Smith a top 10 quarterback.
It's a rhetorical trick. Once you get into 8, 9, and 10, you're talking about interchangeable pieces.
Okay, I'm looking at an NFL.com ranking here. They do have him 12, which is higher than I would have him. Like you say, he's a turnover guy. 15 interceptions, way a lot, and no matter what the metrics say, that's still a lot of turnovers.
Well, wait a minute, though. The metrics do require some examination because he's got as many interceptions. Cousins and Baker had more, but his offensive line was bad. And I want to do the assessment on DK Metcalf. What's Pittsburgh doing here? Are they going to keep Metcalf and Pickens? Are they going to keep Metcalf and Pickens? And now what's this sourcing that has Aaron Rodgers as somebody in Pittsburgh that is being linked to Pittsburgh? I thought when they got DK Metcalf, I was of the opinion that they were doing that for Russell Wilson. That signaled to me that there was going to be something between Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf. How do DK Metcalf and Pickens fit together?
What are we doing there with that? That's just, they have two good receivers now. They had one, and now they have two. They were doing that in the other room. They're the same guy. It's like, yeah, they're both good.
They're going to find a quarterback.
They're not the same guy. And Pickens, I don't know. Pickens is unusual, and there seemed to be issues with him in Pittsburgh in the locker room. And it made it seem to me like Pickens wasn't going to be there very much longer, independent of DK Metcalf.
Well, I'm not a father, but I can tell you it's possible they could trade George Pickens and get that second-round pick back. But this was a desperate need for the Steelers last season. They really needed more bodies at the wide receiver position. They tried to trade for Mike Williams, and they got a couple touchdowns out of him, but it didn't change anything. And then when Pickens was hurt, the offense completely fell apart. They really didn't have any downfield threats for Russell Wilson. So this is something that I think the Steelers needed to do, but there's still obviously a question of who is going to actually be their quarterback now, because it could be Aaron Rodgers. It sounds like it still could be Justin Fields or Russell Wilson, but maybe leans more towards Russell Wilson of the two of them. It could be like a fourth option. It could be Sam Darnold. Maybe they should have looked harder at Stafford. There's no really great options right now for teams like Pittsburgh and Seattle who are going to need quarterbacks for next season, because this is a pretty weak quarterback draft, and free agency is not – a lot of these teams don't want to pay these players the contracts that they're about to earn because they're just not that great.
Do we believe this Aaron Rodgers interest? Popping up a lot of places. Feels like spin from an agent. Just trying to keep his name in there.
It's interesting how it's being reported, because it's just like Schefter constantly opening up the door like, hey, they're talking about him. And that's kind of the reporting that we get on it, which was kind of what happened this morning, which is as they still try to have conversations with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, another name that's being invoked is Aaron Rodgers, and that's kind of how the reporting is being done. That Aaron always seems like someone's like plan B, plan C.
For the Steelers, it also what is Russ's number? Because it's not $1 million a year, which is what they had him for last year, right? So now that they've given DK $30 million, how much are you going to give to the quarterback? Are you going to draft a quarterback, or are you going to get a middle-level quarterback? You have Fields that you could get probably for cheaper than you can get Russ at this point. And the Aaron Rodgers thing, I mean, any team that has a quarterback need now that's looking for an established quarterback, even though he didn't have a great season last year, is better than, gambling on a
Kirk Cousins,
Daniel Jones, maybe.
Right, I agree. Aaron Rodgers, the second half of last season, was really good. If you look at his second half numbers, he was Pro Bowl quality just in the second half. But he got so much heat for not lifting the Jets, and that's rightful heat. But still, he's got something left. I would much rather have Aaron Rodgers. I'm surprised the Raiders didn't sign him. And I would rather have Aaron Rodgers than Geno Smith as my starting quarterback.
But he's a stopgap, right? You're just getting him for basically next season and then working. If you're close enough and you need a serviceable quarterback, you take a chance on Aaron Rodgers. Or if you're a terrible team that just wants to make a splashy move, you get Aaron Rodgers.
But I feel like we all have Aaron Rodgers amnesia for some reason.
Yeah.
The reason the Jets were bad the first half this season was also because of Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, cool. They turned things around for the last 5 meaningless games of the season, but do we not remember the whole thing for the last 2 years? I understand why a team wouldn't want to sign him.
The Vikings make sense in that J.J. McCarthy missed all of last season with an injury, so you still don't really know what you have in J.J. McCarthy. So, like, if he is still your plan going forward, you bring in Aaron Rodgers for a season to get you to J.J. because J.J., after sitting out a season, probably isn't ready to be your starter. And I don't think that you're ready to commit to Sam Darnold long-term, which is probably what Sam Darnold is looking for this offseason.
Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be a backup.
No, he's not going to be a backup. That's what we're saying. He's going to be a starter.
I'm
for
saying
one
J.J.
of these.
McCarthy is their future there, so much so that they're willing to let go of a Sam Darnold who performed well with those skill guys and who I don't believe Aaron Rodgers is going to be going anywhere where he's not allowed to be the starter. But the thing I wanted to talk to you about that I always have difficulties untangling, and I remember the first time I had difficulties untangling it. The Dallas Cowboys, champion Dallas Cowboys, had Michael Irvin and Alvin Harper. Both of them thought they were number one receivers. Alvin Harper was a number two receiver. Alvin Harper became a number one receiver for Tampa and wasn't as good in Tampa because he didn't have Michael Irvin. DK Metcalf, the last couple of seasons, and I asked the audience this, do you consider him, not in body type and looks, a number one receiver? Do you consider him in production a number one receiver? Because the last couple of seasons, he's got like 60 catches a season. And that's generally not what I associate with a number one receiver. Now, there are a couple of franchises, and only a couple, that now have the benefit that Belichick used to have whenever he added Ocho Cinco and Albert Hainsworth, and people said, well, he must know something. He's great. He's going to get something out of him, and then he didn't. Devontae Adams goes to the Rams, and all of us are like, that's gonna be something with the Rams. Like, whatever it hasn't been the last couple of years, I think that's going to be something with the Rams. DK Metcalf is what? When I present him to you and say, who's more likely to be a real number one the way that you expect them to be a number one this year and going forward? Pickens or DK Metcalf? Because there's going to be a pecking order in Pittsburgh, and then you get into the A.J. Brown situation in Philadelphia where he's a number one, he knows he's a number one, and the moment he stops being a number one, he starts getting mad about things.
I think DK Metcalf is a legitimate number one receiver. At his size, 6'4", with his speed, I think he's a number one. He's got 48 career touchdowns in 5 or 6 years. He's 27, he's in his prime. Receivers, he's got another good few years.
You associate 66 catches with a number one receiver? 60, because what he does is he's not always open. He gets you some touchdowns, but 66 catches is that's not a high usage rate. That's a guy who's getting shut down in some games, and the number ones in this league don't really get shut down.
They also have 3 good receivers that they spread the wealth to with Lockett and JSN. So I think that DK Metcalf, I am a little worried. Big-bodied wide receivers historically drop off a little bit earlier, but they have 2 good wide receivers. I think what a lot of people are doing is they have the same jersey number. How's that going to work out between Pickens and DK Metcalf?
That is a good question. Who is going to wear 14 next season?
Pickens,
if
right?
they're both on the Steelers.
I mean, you're the new guy. You got to get a new number. I eat.
But if you're the guy that just signed the huge contract, are you going to pay for the number?
Money
like
talks, as we learned with Myles
deal?
Garrett.
Can you guys find any images that suggest that DK Metcalf already has a lot of jewelry with number 14 on it and is going to pay a good deal of money in order to have that number so that he could either keep his jewelry or sell it to George Pickens?
To answer the original question, I think Geno Smith is a top 4 quarterback in Seahawks history. And he's borderline jersey retirement guy. And if he were around when they had some of their better teams, they would have had the same number of Super Bowl wins at the very least. Geno Smith.
Wait, we're doing Hasselbeck. We're doing Wilson. Who's the third?
I think you go Craig.
Jim Zorn.
Zorn over Craig?
I mean, the numbers are so different. I'm guessing Jim Zorn threw 1 million interceptions at a time when people threw 1 million interceptions, and so he probably doesn't age very well.
In terms of passing yardage for that franchise, Geno Smith is 5th. Last year, in terms of passing yardage, Geno Smith was 4th. I think it's a great deal for all parties. I think that they're not going to keep Geno Smith long-term in Seattle. They want to tether a franchise quarterback to this head coach. We're at the tail end of Geno Smith's career. For the Raiders, it's a great idea. No one was really thinking that Geno Smith was available. They missed out on Stafford. You have Brady kind of intertwined with their decisions there. You have Geno kind of hold it down for a year, maybe bring up a guy that you develop. It's a perfect trade, and you reunite him with a coach that he had some success with, and Pete Carroll.
DK Metcalf wore 14 in college. George Pickens at Georgia wore number 1. So Pickens could look back. Is there number 1 on the Steelers right now? Maybe he could switch to 1.
By the way, George Pickens in 3 seasons has 52, 63, and 59 catches. It's not like he's a 100-catch-a-year guy.
Oh, but
it's also a run-first offense that hasn't had a great quarterback for
But neither
years.
has Metcalf, you could argue.
To that point, I don't think either of them are going to be a 100-catch guy with the Steelers. They're not going to change their whole way of doing
But
business.
Geno Smith in 2022 was better than anything the Steelers have had since Ben Roethlisberger retired.
Greg's doing unfair things to Geno Smith when he's comparing him unfavorably to a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers, and he's doing so because of the history of Geno Smith more than he's doing than the recent Geno Smith. Like, he's going back 10 years on Geno Smith when he's getting punched by a teammate in the Jets locker room and whatever the numbers were back then. Geno Smith has reinvented himself almost entirely. But I asked the group and I asked the audience, did they win a playoff game with Geno Smith there? Because they may have, but I don't remember it.
I don't think so. I know that they gave San Francisco a run for their money at San Francisco in the playoffs, but I don't think they won a playoff.
But I think this is what we do with Geno Smith. We oversimplify this based on both his past and the fact that we associate quarterbacks with winning in a way that's not totally fair, given that there are a lot of things that go into winning. But Geno Smith, I feel like everyone listening to this knows that what you're going to get with Geno Smith is you're going to be a 500 team that's not going to win in the playoffs, no matter what team you put him on.
That's the Steelers also. Right. The number 1 jersey is retired in Pittsburgh, by the way. Has not been reissued in a long time.
Oh, who wore it?
Gary Anderson.
Yeah. The kicker?
The kicker? The kicker?
The one with the one
Prolific.
face mask?
Yeah.
Like the one.
What?
The Gary.
I was talking about too many numbers being retired, man. Wow.
You were talking about that. Is Greg doing this unfairly with Geno Smith? Because I don't think Geno Smith has been able to erase with Greg what his reputation is, even though over the last 3 or 4 seasons, Geno Smith has been a wildly productive quarterback.
Yeah, but he still throws a lot of interceptions.
I'm aware that 2 or 3 years ago he had a big comeback season, okay? At this point in his career, for me, Geno Smith is a great veteran backup or a guy who you can trust to be your stopgap starter while you wait for J.J. McCarthy to bloom, something like that. I just don't see him as a guy you sign thinking, all right, we're solved now. We got 4 or 5 years of great quarterbacking. I just don't think he's that guy.
But he's also taking over a team that was 4-13 that didn't have a quarterback. So, like, even if he gets you to 500, that is a huge upgrade from where the Raiders were last season.
Okay, but Tom Brady knows better than anybody. Is that your answer? Is this a guy you're satisfied with?
I mean, maybe not long term, but like you just signed Max Crosby, who you're going to be building around, right? And he commanded a lot of money. Are you going to overtake the Chiefs in the AFC West? Probably not. You're probably playing for a wild card spot. If you get 9-10 wins, you can make the playoffs. Geno Smith can give you that.
I'd like to read you some things that I think run counter empirically to what it is Greg thinks he's right about here when he just looks at 15 interceptions and that is his assessment of Geno Smith. This is, and you don't tend to like this stuff from Pro Football Focus, but I'm just going to read it, okay, because it does a deeper dive on those turnovers than you're presently doing. Per Pro Football Focus, Smith had a league average turnover-worthy play rate of 2.6%. That tied him with Josh Allen, the league's MVP. Josh Allen was wildly efficient when it came to turnovers this year, and it puts him ahead of Tua, Jordan Love, Goff, Stafford, Darnold, and Hurts, all of whom had better offensive line play than Geno Smith. He ranks 14th in career dropbacks among active players, with 10 of the players above him having entered the league after him per True Media. It makes him harder to evaluate based on true talent level, but he did throw a lot of passes over his 3 seasons as Seattle's starter. Only Mahomes had more dropbacks over that span, and according to Pro Football Focus's grading, only 6 quarterbacks performed better than Geno Smith during that time. Their names are Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Allen, Mahomes, and Tua.
Easy upgrade for their roster. Much better than Minshew, O'Connell, Ritter.
Well, that's true. I'll admit that.
They need to get the running game in order, but the sneaky thing about the Raiders is they had 2,000-yard receivers. Bowers and Jacoby Myers in 15 games also had more than 1,000 yards receiving this year. Just did it with very little fanfare because they weren't playing meaningful games.
I mean, why do you think Geno Smith went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 8 years in a row in his career without being a starting quarterback, starting 2 games in an 8-year period? I think you're talking like you're Geno Smith's agent, and stats can be maneuvered and jiggered and wiggled to say just about anything. You can look at Pro Football Focus. You can look at that kind of analytics and come up with any reason why any quarterback is
But, Greg,
great.
it's got more information than your opinion, which is just based on 5 years ago, like what you thought 5 years ago and hasn't changed. There's more empirical data in what – yes, you can make it say anything, but what I just made it say was pretty impressive.
But what you guys are arguing is Greg saying he's the 12th best quarterback, and you're saying he's the 10th. So what are we actually really arguing about?
Sports!
I mean, he's saying he's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. I'm saying at this point in his career, he's a great veteran backup. If you want a veteran backup as a safety net, and he's a guy that you're fine as a 1-year stopgap.
I think it's somewhere in the middle between both of you.
11.
So,
historically, not something that you say about someone that's top 4 in passing yards in the league.
I was looking up, by the way, since you guys are talking about stats and how you can manipulate stats to tell you anything you want, because we were talking about Kevin Love earlier and retiring him and why they retire him. I found 3 Cleveland Cavaliers stats in which Kevin Love is the all-time leader. Defensive rebound percentage, defensive rebounds per 36 minutes, and defensive rebounds per 100 possessions. There you go. All-time great in 3 random stats.
There you go. Not even the best Love in NBA history. Bob Love, Chicago Bulls. Let's go.
Put them next to each other. Is Bob Love indeed better than Kevin Love? I don't know his career enough to know whether Bob Love is indeed better than Kevin Love.
Do we put this on the poll? Bob Love, Chicago Bulls, let's go. Yes or no?
Yes. Put that on the poll at Le Batard Show. And tell me all you know about Bob Love, because I really do believe that at this point, and I think you should be allowed at your age, you've settled so comfortably into your ignorance that there is no new information I can give you that you wouldn't wave off with a hand because you already know better. And you're like, facts and stats and data and all of your proof otherwise, I dismiss it based on my gut feeling.
The easiest stat to dismiss is passing yards. You put any backup quarterback in the right offense with the right receivers, and he's going to pass for 4,000 yards.
But wait a minute. Let's just wait a minute. Okay, it's a hard position to play. There aren't many good ones. What would Geno Smith have to do? What would I have to present to you to change your mind that's already formed and hardened about what Geno Smith is, what you think him to be, when what he's been in this league has been somebody statistically? I still maintain, if you can get the sound of how accurate this was, I think it's got to be the most amazing prediction in the history of our show, where Amin, before a season started, when everyone's opinion was what yours is of Geno Smith, Amin El-Hassan, our basketball expert, gave us a prediction on what it is that Geno Smith would do that season, and those statistics that he predicted that we all thought were outlandish were good enough, Greg, that you would want it to be your quarterback for all but 5 or 6 of the teams in the league, because we will put next to the prediction, we will get you the actual stats.
I cannot believe that an NFL team in 2022 is entering the year with Geno Smith as their quarterback.
Scorching hot take. We'll see Drew Lock this season.
Yeah. Of course. We'll see a third quarterback. We'll see them be linked with every, like, Jimmy Garoppolo's going to get waived. He might go there. Like, I just can't fathom. I can't fathom that an NFL team decided after 8 months of, like, being able to plan for a draft, for free agency, for quarterbacks coming available via trade, they're like, you know what we're going to do? Geno Smith.
I submit to you 4,000 yards for Geno Smith.
Impossible.
30
Impossible.
30 tutties, 11 INTs.
Oh. I will sit. I mean, if that exact stat line happens, I will sit and do this show in my underpants. There is no way. Career 34 touchdowns, 37 interceptions.
You should have to do an episode from your bathtub.
34 career touchdowns.
Why not? I'll do a show. I'll do a show from my bathtub if Geno Smith does this.
Treat yourself, King.
Wow.
All right, let me write that down.
With the bath
4K
4,000. What'd you say? 32 touchdowns,
No,
11
30
interceptions.
30 and 11.
30 and 11.
Yeah,
30
and 11.
touchdowns, 11.
I will do the
11
show.
It's attainable.
30 tutties.
I will do the show from my bathtub if this happens.
So he said 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. That season, Geno Smith, 4,300 yards, 30 touchdowns, 11 interceptions.
That's nuts.
And Bob Love has his number retired
He
by
does.
the Bulls. Number
There
10.
you go.
Put their stats next to each other, though. Bob Love and Kevin Love. I want to put them next to each other.
Bob Love, 3-time All-Star. Kevin Love, Billy?
Well, 5, but only 2 times for the Cavs. So Cavs, I mean, I don't know why they're retiring.
Bob Love had like a 6 or 7, 8-year period in the middle of his career where he was top 20 in MVP voting each year.
Top 20.
Well,
He was averaging 22 points.
Yeah.
Top 20 in
22
MVP
points and
voting.
7 rebounds.
Tyler Hero's top
9
20 in
seasons.
MVP voting.
He was top 5 a couple of years, I think. you know.
Bob Love's number 41 is also retired by the Southern Jaguars.
There you go. That's the biggest honor of all.
Are you guys going to just skip past how amazing that Amin prediction was? Like that is, and that Chris Whittingham hasn't actually paid off what he owes, any of what he owes, but especially that.
He did like in a shower. It didn't count, obviously. We always talk about how right Amin is, but we never talk about how wrong Chris and Tony were in this clip.
Or how wrong Amin is all the other times.
I think the funniest thing was Whitty referring to underpants. Who says the word underpants?
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Do you use the word underpants? Yes or no?
There's only 2 other Southern Jaguars who have their number retired: Avery Johnson and Bobby Phills.
Wow, how about that? That's
A lot of Bulls have their numbers retired.
See, that's good intel. I don't need a
Well,
breakdown
not really.
of useless analytics. I want stats like that.
The
Thank
Bulls
Give me
only
a
have
list.
a couple players with their numbers retired.
More than 3?
I think 4.
Well, more than 3.
I don't know if you count. I mean, do you count executives? Because Phil Jackson and Jerry Krause are like Ring of Honor or whatever they call it there.
Oh, they probably rescinded Krause, though. They boo him now in that arena.
I've gone back.
It's not nice.
I've gone back 20 years, and I haven't found a single MVP awards voting that has been made public that has 20 names on it.
One of the weird
Most I
things.
found is 17.
Times change. Back in the 60s and 70s, they released everything.
Yeah.
You know, back then you didn't have analytics. You had points per game, and that was all you needed. Assists and rebounds, the big 3.
Let me ask you guys this question. I don't know if you saw that Darius Slay gave his list of elite quarterbacks, and it's what you would presume it would be. It's Burrow, Mahomes, it's Lamar, and it's Josh Allen. That's his top tier.
Oh, no Geno, huh? Odd.
Well, no Jalen Hurts was the part that's odd because it's his teammate and the Super Bowl MVP. And the part of that was surprising is usually they just lie in that spot. What are you laughing about, Billy? No Geno Smith?
Oh, he's right. Yeah, Geno.
Yeah, that's true. It is no Geno Smith.
You know?
I cannot believe how much we've debated Geno Smith.
10
so far.
versus 12. It's
great.
crazy.
I mean, we're parsing here.
This is March.
Let me just say, I don't think I'm disrespecting Geno Smith nearly as much as you're overestimating.
That's why this is an annoying conversation, because neither of you are doing that. We're just kind of living in the middle, like Geno Smith, huh?
But this is
We're doing like 10 to 14 here.
No, but this is my larger point. The larger point is both of those teams end up being nowhere franchises because they can only get the 10th best quarterback. And that ends up making you 9-8 or 8-9 every single season. And so Pete Carroll just wants the stability of give me the guy that I know so that I could get my feet settled here and I don't have to do Minshew for a season when we all know what that is. And it ain't Geno Smith. Minshew, like what Greg is describing Geno Smith as is what Minshew actually is. I believe he's being unfair to Geno Smith because Minshew has gotten enough opportunities to be Geno Smith and hasn't been it in any of the offenses that he's been in.
But you're also saying Geno Smith is basically a 500 quarterback who's not going to win a playoff game for you. That's a top 10 quarterback?
No. What I'm saying is it's impossible to do the evaluations and disentangle everybody from everyone else, and it becomes very hard to make accurate assessments on what someone is when he's got a bad offensive line, he's got good wide receivers, and he's in a lot of trouble, and he's unlucky when it comes to turnovers, at least last year, that it becomes very hard to make an accurate assessment on what that is, and it becomes very hard to change anybody's mind on what they already thought that was.
So I brought attention to the ongoing Geno Smith debate so you guys would take inventory of the situation and maybe share some regret. Instead, you took that as an opportunity to quadruple down on your very passionate, conviction-filled Geno Smith takes.
Might ban his name for the rest of the show if we keep doing this.
Okay, well, you guys don't want to talk quarterbacks all of a sudden?
I'd love talking quarterbacks, but this is like a
Just
solid
not
move
Geno
for Raiders.
Smith,
We
yeah.
understand why they did it. We understand why the Seahawks did it. Upgraded the position for the Raiders. I think even Greg would agree with that. So
We have 3 more mentions of his name on this show allowed.
I mean, it's a good move by all teams involved, right? The Seahawks didn't want to pay him $40 million a year. The Raiders needed a quarterback.
Okay,
So
he's
they
better
did the
than
thing.
Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew. All right, I'll give you that. He's not even the best Geno of all time.
Who's the best Geno?
Geno Vanelli.
Oh.
Let alone top 10 quarterback.
Geno Fuente's the worst.
You guys do understand that basically what you're doing is that 20 teams in that sport aren't worth ever talking about. That's what you're doing. That there are 20 teams that you guys just don't want to talk about. And that's fine.
I was good with this conversation the first time we did it.
Yes, I think we all were. I'm in on it. I like going through. I like stats. I like digging through these Pro Bowl years of Geno Smith and say, man, more people should have paid attention to that.
That's one.
Yeah, but there you go.
One of the items from the football weekend that I found most interesting in negotiations is that Myles Garrett didn't make the mess that I was hoping that he would make, because I found curious the sequence of events that happened here where Myles Garrett requests a trade. This is a new thing now. DK Metcalf requests a trade. Trey Hendrickson has requested a trade. All over the league in football, there are players suddenly requesting trades because they realize that the money is drying up or going to some of their teammates. But the sequence on Myles Garrett was he requests a trade, and then the reporting is that Cleveland's owner, Jimmy Haslam, refuses to meet with Garrett. And when I read that, I'm like, that seems really unwise. Also feels really interesting to have an owner lording over the proceedings in a way where he just refuses a meeting with his star player who is unhappy. And then the next thing you know, Myles Garrett signs for more than Max Crosby, more than any player in the league who's not a quarterback. And if I were Myles Garrett, I would have wanted my money elsewhere. I don't trust that organization with the next 3 years of my career. I'm going to waste the next 3 years of my career breaking my body just for money, and I'm going to spend all 3 years losing. If I were Myles Garrett, I would have tested my talent against the system and made whatever mess I needed to make and taken the fines of whatever mess I would have made. And in my next signing, because my talent is so large, I would have gotten my money back.
You would have Jimmy Butlered it.
I would have not Jimmy Butlered it, but Jimmy Butlered it for football when there's the common understanding from everyone watching, yeah, they've betrayed that guy. Everyone watching that says, yeah, they did Deshaun Watson there, and he's got no help. Myles Garrett cannot succeed under those circumstances.
Yeah, but they just gave him $123.5 million guaranteed, $40 million a year, and he's someone that has an injury history. So, like, the idea of, you know what, I'm just going to sit out and not play, and then I'll get it next time around isn't actually an option for Myles Garrett when he has all that money guaranteed that he may not get next year if he gets injured.
Myles Garrett did make it as messy as possible. I mean, you could say, like, I guess he could have been more of a baby about it, but he came out with his trade request. He actually got the fans behind his trade request, and he did the media circuit all throughout Radio Row and the Super Bowl about his trade request. What happened was it's an already impossible contract to move, even with his superlative production. They probably gave him here the options. They never deviated from the fact that they never wanted to trade him, and they decided to make the problem go away by giving it the biggest contract ever for someone that's not a quarterback. And Myles Garrett, I know you'd like to do some role play here, saw the situation, laid out the entire lay of the land, knew that he was in the weird position of being a franchise player in the prime of his career, and yet the fans still understood his trade request, and he still decided to stay.
You say he made it as messy as he could have. No, he didn't. The way that he makes it messiest is by actually wanting to leave and leaving for no amount of money.
But he didn't. He wanted the money.
He wanted money. He caved. So, like, if you're Myles Garrett, what you would have done is you would have signed the contract
what I'm
because
saying.
that's what Myles Garrett did end up doing, which is he signed, okay, give me the big money bomb. I'll take that. That's fine enough. Everybody understands where he was coming from. It wasn't easy to move. It wasn't fair value for them to move him. Not many teams could even take the backloaded contract. So, ultimately, like, it was posturing. Myles Garrett, yeah, he was calling into question something that everybody agreed with. Someone saying that, who has played those years for that franchise. Everybody understands that they've botched his career and that they're not doing enough winning, but that's a move in a negotiation. And Myles Garrett got what he wanted.
Exactly. If you're Myles Garrett, you posture. You say, I want to trade. I'm Mr. Competitive. I want to play for a contender. What you really want is the contract.
Yeah, and then the agent says, okay, he's not happy. You want him happy? This is the number.
Well,
and
you guys misunderstand me. What I was hoping for is for a football player to be able to actually exert the power because he meant it, because it wasn't about money, because I want a football player to have so much value that they do not care where they get the money and therefore exert their power against the system.
But what you want a football player is that doesn't care about money, and that's not what this instance was.
What am I missing? Like, he used all the power, and he got the greatest deal ever. Yeah.
No,
what is not
Mike,
like?
Which part are you not understanding?
You want him to just like go to another team that doesn't have the cap room?
I am wanting him to say, no amount of money keeps me in Cleveland. Get me out of here. I want to see how that looks in football when you actually have the talent to execute it.
Okay, I think we've seen it before. Le'Veon Bell before, and it didn't really work out for him. Like we've seen it. That's not what Myles Garrett's motivations were. If you want to like craft a scenario.
I do want to craft that scenario
okay,
in
well, we're
football.
Playing make-believe.
Yes, we are. Thank you, guys. Yes, we are playing make-believe with Myles Garrett, who isn't Le'Veon Bell. Myles Garrett represents a value in the NFL that not a lot of people have, and he wasn't going to risk injury by not playing. The mess I wanted him to make is to test all of the conservative powers in football that make it so that the system can land on the player. Which part of this are you guys not understanding about what I wanted here?
Just name him like Joey Football Player, because it's just not a real thing. Like he used all the leverage at his disposal.
Got all the
he won.
He used all the leverage. If all the leverage was only used to get money, if it was to get money and a better situation that doesn't ruin his career, he could have kept using that leverage.
If he were a different guy and he actually valued winning over money, then yeah. But he's not.
He gets to be more popular than ever in Cleveland right now because he's the guy who heroically re-signed with the lowly Browns rather than go somewhere else. He gets all the money he ever imagined having, and maybe he loves living in Cleveland. Maybe he doesn't like. No.
Maybe, I mean, it's just for 3 years. It's fine.
Things you've ever
but 3 years, $120 million. I'd love living in Cleveland for that.
I'm not crazy about how everyone just took that as fact. He likes Cleveland. He's a part of the community, and
Most people would live in Cleveland for $40 million, whether or not they liked it.
Okay, that's a factor, whether or not he likes where he's living. I don't care if you make fun of it or not. And I don't know whether he loves living in Cleveland. But if he does, that's another reason.
I do know he doesn't love living in Cleveland. I do know that.
Dude, is this Joey Football Player again?
He's happy there because he's rich, but if he had his choice, he'd be like, he's not like, oh, this is where I'd be. Even after retirement, I'm
you
staying.
guys have no way of knowing
Where do you think he lives in the
Billy,
offseason?
you think he stays there in retirement?
He might. I
think
know.
you'll have
I'll
a
take
home
the
there.
under.
I think you'll have a home there.
That doesn't mean he doesn't like playing there now.
Right.
He could like it there.
We're just making fun of Cleveland, the place.
Guys,
the Cleveland organization.
And
this is so dystopian. This is one of the good stories. Yeah. It's a good story. A guy that has earned for that franchise the biggest contract they can hand out in the history of sports to a non-quarterback, and he earned it. Yeah. Everyone's happy.
I agree.
They get to keep their legend. He decided, you know what? I know I said a lot of hurtful things, but I got this contract, and we're here, Cleveland. You're going to still see my smiling face. And we know we have all sorts of uncertainty around the quarterback position, but you're going to see my smiling face over there, potentially throwing helmets at other people's heads.
He also didn't say all that many hurtful things. Like, you guys are saying Radio Row. Like, here's a news flash. Everyone was told they couldn't ask him about the trade request at Radio Row. Only one person was allowed to. It was Mina, and he said nothing. So, like, he said the day before he went to Radio Row, I want to be traded, and everyone that had him booked was like, you can't ask him about that. And it's like, okay, so what do we ask him about? And that's exactly how that went.
Well, he said that he wanted to play for a team that could like maybe win something
Yeah,
at some
that's
point
what you
in his
say
career.
when you want to leverage to
Yeah,
get more money.
but like I could see people being hurt by that. But to throw Dan a bone here, like I, as a sports fan who's like not really like I don't really have a dog in this fight. Like, yeah, I want to see the best players play for the best teams, and it is a bummer that one of the best players in the league is going to be on this Cleveland Browns team that is in cap hell for the next how many years because they made the worst deal in NFL history to sign Deshaun Watson.
But the only way he could have played for one of the best teams was by making substantially less than what he's going to make. So why would he want to go and play for one of the best teams? So you guys can feel good in exchange for $20 million a year.
It's not just so that we can feel good, but one of the things that I'm objecting to here is I don't want an all-time talent winning 4 games a year and ruining the end of his career because they've got no chance. I'd like my all-time talents to play in relevant football games. And you're right, he doesn't have to do that for me, but I want Joey Football X to be a hypothetical player, one of them to pick. Yeah, you know what? I would like to be relevant and play as an all-time great on a team that actually makes the playoffs, has a chance, as opposed to this one.
But I think the point is that, like, he got the money that he wanted, so we can't put other desires into his heart that he may not have. Like, it seems like this was a happy ending, I guess.
And it's all going to get fixed when they draft Cam Ward.
This episode of the Dan Le Batard Show with Stugotz is presented by DraftKings. DraftKings, the crown is yours.
Billy wanted to talk more Geno Smith.
Did he?
That's 2. Now you get 1 more.
Geno Smith. Oh, now we
All right,
can't.
that's it.
It's a damn shame.
Now we can't.
Next person, penalty box.
Gino Vanelli.
Yeah, Gino Auriemma.
Let's go out to Roy. He is with the Panthers. He is on the ice. He is ready to give us an update on everything that's happening with the Florida Panthers. This is exactly where all hockey stand-ups should be and how all hockey stand-ups should look. Mike Ryan, Roy, I'm curious your opinion here because the hockey show that is often on Fridays was able to react to this is in real time, correct? When this happened last week. Mike Ryan is not here for Brad Marchand, though. How do you feel? That is a minority opinion I feel like he's expressing on behalf of Panther fans. I do not believe that he speaks for all Panther fans, that if you can get a 36-year-old Brad Marchand for $125,000, you absolutely end up doing that. Roy, where are you? And thank you for joining us from the arena. What can you give us in the way of information over there?
He's still injured. He's going to possibly be on the ice to do some stuff. But right now he's going to travel with the team up to Boston. And that's when he's going to finally say goodbye to his former teammates. And he actually got broken up a little bit about talking about his time in Boston and how that went down before he was traded. So right now, we're waiting for him to come back into the lineup. But can you imagine him being on that second line with Sam Bennett and Matty Tkachuk? Oh, the Panthers would be the most hated team in the league.
Roy, he called Sam Bennett a scumbag today, didn't he?
Yes, he did. He did it in a joking fashion, yes. He actually loved him, and they got together during the Four Nations tournament. Him, Sam Bennett, and Sam Reinhart, they played together for Team Canada. And it seems like they patched things up, considering what happened last year in the playoffs when he got punched in the face by Sam Bennett.
Billy mentioned earlier that it seems wildly inefficient to have Marchand fly down here to do this press conference only to go right back up there and be there with the team for the first road game in Boston.
Yeah, it is kind of inefficient, but, you know, he had to get down here, get downloaded on the actual goings-on with the team, and David Dwork is right next to me. But, yeah, I mean, it does seem inefficient for him to go down and then go back up, but he has to get his stuff and everything. But he's traveling with the team throughout the entire road trip, a 6-game road trip coming up for the Panthers.
What is the level? I'd like to talk to Dwork here, if you don't mind, since he came into the shot awkwardly, and you pointed out. I thought it would have been slightly more amusing if he had just awkwardly appeared and then left. But David Dwork, your co-host on the hockey show that sometimes appears on Friday, what would you give us in the way of fan and customer reaction to the Florida Panthers behaving like the Tampa Bay Lightning, stashing away Tkachuk so that they could get a Marchand?
I think there's a lot of anger in the world out there, and I think Panther fans don't give a bleep about it because they were the ones that were angry. Now they have this opportunity to do what, you know, teams wish they could do. The reaction on Twitter has been fun to see just because I think from our perspective, we're just basking in the greatness of what the Panthers are doing right now, and everyone else can just kind of cry about it.
Roy, I still am confused at watching and seeing the Florida Panthers after 30 years behave like an adult, mature franchise that reacts competently to what it is that their customers want.
I know, it's weird, isn't it? I'm getting used to it now. It's been, I don't know, how long has Bill Zito been in charge as general manager? 5 years now, so I'm starting to finally get used to it. An actual responsible, stable organization that's playing hockey down here, and it's actually fun to see.
Given the history, is it possible that that the Panthers traded for Brad to ruin the end of his career? Because they have like such a wealth of talent that they've decided, you know what we're going to do? We're just going to mess with this guy because we hate him and we're going to make sure that he's miserable. You put on a good show today, you give him the sweater, you give him the hat, everybody's, happy-go-lucky, and then you really make the rest of his career difficult.
Well, considering that Brad Marchand actually requested to be traded here, I doubt that's the case. But, hey, do what you want to do, Billy.
He always
Just
will.
asking. I'm just asking.
It doesn't seem like there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm where you are, though. I don't feel like that is pulsating Hockey Nation everywhere around you. I'm not feeling the kind of enthusiasm around the Panthers that I've been told exists, that you feel like you're standing in the middle of something cold and antiseptic.
Because nobody's here, Dan. Practice hasn't started yet, and as soon as practice starts, I believe it might be. Is it an open practice today?
No.
No, it's not an open practice today. So, yeah, there's not a lot of excitement because there are no fans here.
Okay.
Wow. Hey, Roy, where would you rank Geno Smith among NFL quarterbacks?
We can't talk about Geno Smith.
He's just writing this down.
We'll
see. Let
Just
Roy
curious.
answer.
Hold on.
Listen, I'm not going to the penalty box when I get to the studio tomorrow, so you're not going to bait me into that. No, sir.
All right, but pick a number between 10 and 15.
10 or 15?
Yeah.
Lower the
12.
better.
Wow, that's where Greg had him. That's where Greg had him.
Putting you down for Team 12.
Incredible.
All right. Thank you, Roy. We appreciate the coverage from an empty and cold arena where the players are not yet practicing. That locker room still smells bad, though, right? No matter whether they're not sweaty or are sweaty, the locker room always smells like mildew and must.
They have invested in an exhaust fan, so it's not as smelly. So good for us.
Okay, good. Breaking news.
Each locker has its own little air conditioning filter
still
that filters
stinks.
air.
It
Smells like Brian Scrudland.
It does still smell like Brian Scrudland. He's right, and that's not a good smell. It's swampy and it's not good. Even
Hockey's the smelliest sport, right?
By far.
Football's pretty bad.
Oh, yeah.
Not hockey, though.
I think hockey's by far the worst. Then it goes football, soccer, baseball, and then I
Golf
don't know.
smells great.
Golf doesn't smell that bad.
Football tends to be a bigger locker
Dork
room
laughing.
with more players in it, so there's more general open air. For some reason, the hockey locker room is smaller than I would like it to be, but they also have fewer players, right? The hockey locker room is a little more cramped than it needs to be. I feel like all hockey. Do I have this wrong, Roy? I feel like all hockey locker rooms need to be twice as large as they actually are.
Well, there's only, 18 to 20 players in a locker room as opposed to a football team which has about 60. So, yeah, it does need to be a bit bigger, especially the Panthers locker room. I mean, that arena's been, 1998? It's over 20 years old. So they're not going to build a bigger locker room in there for them unless they get a new arena, which I hope actually
Champions
happens
deserve
soon,
a bigger
but
locker room.
Yeah,
for sure.
Well,
absolutely.
Their brand new facility is amazing. One of the big upgrades in all of sports from like team HQs. But Roy, I'm coming to grips with the fact that I'm in the minority here. I think most Panther fans, it took them a second to warm up to it, but when they realized what they gave up, which is next to nothing, and the fact that they got to hurt Boston fans yet again without even doing something on the ice, they're in on this concept. But for me, I'm always going to hate him. Yeah. I like hating him. Yeah. I'm sure there's a hypothetical that you could craft, game-winning goal to send the Panthers to the Stanley Cup final or a huge goal in the Stanley Cup final where I may crack. No. But as someone that has sat on my hands every time Alonzo Mourning is introduced at the AAA and maintaining that level of resentment, I don't think I'm going to budge on this one. Yeah. I'm going to continue hating Brad Marchand. Where do you align yourself with?
Yeah. Well, Brad Marchand, as a person, as a human being, I've changed my mind about him maybe 3 years ago for his stance on Tony DeAngelo, for his stance on the Bruins, trying to sign a prospect by the name of Mitchell Miller, who bullied a developmentally disabled black kid by making him eat a piece of candy out of a urinal and repeatedly called him the N-word. And the Bruins decided not to sign him based on how Brad Marchand and a couple of the other players felt on the team. So as a person, I definitely have turned around on him. He seems like a stand-up guy. But as a player, he's perfect for this team. Absolutely perfect for this team.
What was that sound?
Probably the PR person dropping the notes, hearing Roy invoke that pass. I thought you were going to go face licking.
I thought Mike Ryan was down on Marchand as a person. Mike Ryan.
Yeah, I'm down. I don't like him as a person or a player, but whatever. He's a fourth liner. It's all right. Maybe sometimes we'll swap Greer for him.
It's a fourth liner?
Yeah. I mean, go through our wingers. Who do you rate more? A bad player, bad person. Occasionally, if we want to spark, maybe dress him occasionally. That's cool with me. But I'm playing Greer over him. Not taking Jesper out.
Yeah, I doubt that he's
not taking Mackey out. Are you taking Mackey out? I'm not taking Mackey out. Verhage seemed to figure it out a little bit.
Mackey's not going to lead the lineup either. I'm not going to lead the lineup.
Greer, see you later, Greer.
Let's not marry ourselves to the idea that Brad Marchand has to play every game, is what I'm saying.
Is this the best and the deepest Panther team there has ever been?
Yeah.
Dwarf.
So,
yes, Roy. Yes.
That coming into March, they were already favored to get out of the East and make the final. But after this trade deadline, I think it's safe to say that they're the Stanley Cup favorite.
Who do you fear the most?
Rose.
No, I would say Colorado's probably a good team to be fearing right now. I don't fear the Jets.
I do.
I am here for off-mic
they've got
comedy.
amazing goaltending, and they're really deep.
I'm also here for you just naming teams in the Western Conference because that ain't our problem until we get to our third straight Stanley Cup final, potentially.
Yeah, Mike's right. It's not our problem right now. We'll worry about it come late June.
You don't fear Ovechkin?
No. I think they might not make it out of the first round.
Yeah.
Really?
They're not built for the playoffs.
They're not built for the
Washington's
playoffs.
not built for the playoffs.
Yeah.
They're built like the Panthers President's Trophy team. Exciting hockey, end-to-end rushes, but when you get to the playoffs where everybody starts beating the snot out of each other, it doesn't really work that well.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate all of your work on the hockey show and beyond. They are very excited. Everything around the Panthers is feeling championship excellent, and Bill Zito is somebody who is climbing up the ranks in terms of culture and legacy-making executives in the history of South Florida because he's got a lot of popularity as it regards the architecture of that. We have learned that it is difficult to stay atop the championship mountain, not just in hockey, but you saw that Denver won the championship, and now yesterday you're watching, and Denver is getting run out of the building late in the game against Oklahoma City because Oklahoma City is going to be good for a really long time. And when that game got to deciding time yesterday, the best offensive player I've ever seen stopped mattering. What happens with Denver when Jokic is on the court and when he's off the court is a bit stupefying architecturally, that they haven't gotten him more help in Denver. He puts up the first 30-20-20 in league history, and do you understand how disorienting it is to have the first 30-20-20 in league history delivered by somebody who talks about their game this way?
I can't dunk it, guys. Did you see me play? I never dunk. Did you see me dunk? I never dunk.
What is happening in this league?
It is so strange to see him go for 30, 20, and 20 and be entirely unstoppable, but Denver hasn't gotten him enough help. He should make the mess that Jimmy made, even though he won the championship, because he's like, you guys can't do better than
You
Aaron
found your
Gordon.
Myles Garrett. We found our Joey Football. He's in Denver.
The problem with him, though, is when he says, like, I don't want to play basketball, I won't come back, he really won't. Like, he really will not. If he's gone, he's not going to come back.
Yeah, unlike Myles Garrett, I believe every word that he would say about the sport of basketball and not wanting to play it and being willing to hold out for millions and millions.
Toronto was a one-year champion and then fell to the bottom of the league. Denver has not fallen to the bottom of the league, but they also haven't gotten any better since winning the championship, and a whole lot of teams around them have gotten better when they've been basically the same 55-win team. And Michael Porter is saying that they might be in a last dance type of situation this year where it gets broken up if they don't win a championship, and I don't know how he's doing the arithmetic on that one, because it's not going to be a last dance situation where they get rid of Jokic. They might get rid of Michael Porter. They might get rid of Aaron Gordon. But when you've got Jamal Murray and Jokic together, and that's not good enough anymore. What's happening in Cleveland and Oklahoma City suggests that the league has passed them by, and obviously Boston is still there beating the Lakers, and LeBron is leaving the game as Jason Tatum goes for his usual quiet 40.
All right, and let's pump the brakes on comparing us to the Last Dance. Like Dan already outlined, you're a one-time champion. It's like Van Vliet going like, all right, we're in our last dance phase here. Let's relax. Let's win more than one.
It's always, though, something that I enjoy monitoring when the rest of the league gets competitive on what the championship standard is and then passes the championship standard, because we're all watching Denver. We saw what it took to win the championship, and all of us are looking at that and saying that's not good enough anymore. The league has elevated beyond where I've seen a lot of people, including Greg Cody, complaining about all the leads that the Miami Heat are blowing and then blaming that on Eric Spoelstra, when what's actually happening there is these games are decided in the fourth quarter the way that OKC and Denver was yesterday. The game's closed through three quarters, and in the fourth quarter you just see OKC run away. The Miami Heat are so limited offensively that when it gets tight late, they can't hold on to their leads because offensively they are so wildly limited. And you can sit here and say they've got a bunch of double-digit leads, but in that league, that has ceased to matter. That's not something that matters anymore, that you have a double-digit league, that they can be erased the moment that a team makes 4 threes. And so I don't know what your assessment is there, but it's not enough anymore to have just Jokic doing MVP things, because they may take the MVP away from him because they're bored by him, but he's having his best season. Statistically, that human being is getting better, and the architecture around him isn't getting better. That's not good enough anymore. We're in consensus on that, correct? Right. What was good enough a few years ago is no longer good enough in Denver, even though the MVP is better than he's ever been.
I think you're giving me a storyline that might actually get me to tune in for basketball reasons. I think a lot of it has to do with how humanizing that clip was. That's the funniest Jokic clip I've seen in a long time.
Yeah, really good.
Him talking to kids and just flatly saying, no, I'm this dominant player, maybe the greatest offensive force ever, and I don't dunk. Yeah. I don't do that. So when you have the tinge of doubt, and there's more than a tinge when it comes to Denver, you have this guy being a little bit more affable, and now he has all the tools. He's unstoppable, but he's got all this doubt about this team, and you add a little last dance element, I'm in on the Nuggets.
Can you guys explain to me why it is that we do what it is that we did earlier in the show with OKC and Cleveland that would make those fan bases insane about how dismissive we are about their teams being excellent and how bad a finals that would be if it's OKC and Cleveland? Can you explain to me why it is and how it is we do that with our big market bias, where if I took those teams and simply put them in Lakers uniforms, in Knicks uniforms, in Celtics uniforms, I've got a kind of history in it that makes the finals more interesting than this would be, even though that it is not unclear the two best teams during the regular season. Boston will have something to say about that in the postseason, but during the regular season, these are the two best teams. And if I tell an audience outside of basketball, not the basketball heads, here are you two worthy finals teams, why is it that I make it so small market onerous that I offend OKC and Cleveland's fan base when I say the nation doesn't want to watch that, even though basketball fans do?
I think you're looking at it through a likely TV ratings prism, right? Because
just interest. I'm not doing TV ratings. I'm just doing interest and just generally how we want storylines that are familiar. We want the history that we're used to. It takes us a minute to adapt to. What do you mean I have to be paying attention to how good Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is, or how good it is when it's Garland and Allen and Mobley and Mitchell? What do you mean I have to change how I do all of my information gathering on who's the best because it's what I'm used to being the best as opposed to the new best?
I don't for a second I totally understand where Cavs and Thunder fans are coming from, but we've been having these discussions about the NBA is at this inflection point. People aren't tuning in as much, and it's all happening when Cleveland and Oklahoma City are at the top of their respective conferences and have been the best teams pretty much wire to wire here. Everyone's kind of bracing for that, and the numbers are telling us they're not really digging it. We had a nice little pop on Christmas Day when it came to ratings, but generally across the board, the story isn't a good one this year. They're asking Adam Silver every avail, what are you going to do to change your sport? And this is all happening with Oklahoma City and Cleveland to top it. It's not really working for the customer at large.
I mean, by everybody, I mean people like us, probably want Knicks versus Lakers or some city for city matchup like that.
I don't. I'm confused. I want excellence. I don't care the uniforms that it wears.
I think there's going to be a growing appetite for Cavaliers and Thunder if coming into the finals, these are the two best teams in the regular season. SGA is the next tier of all-time superstar players, perhaps. I think this is a matchup that's going to grow on people. I'm interested in that final.
The problem is, though, like if the ratings are down and casual fans aren't watching during the regular season, when you see teams like the Cavaliers and the Thunder, because you haven't been watching and you don't know how good the teams are, you don't have that connection point. So, like, if you tune into the finals, you want to see the familiarity and you want it to feel bigger than it is. Even if these are the two best teams in the league, you're not watching during the regular season. For whatever reason, one reason or another, the ratings have been down in the regular season. The All-Star game was kind of a mess where they weren't really happy with the product. They weren't really happy with the competitions. So if you're trying to get the casuals to watch in the finals, the casuals are going to want the teams that they know of, not necessarily the best teams, because they don't know these teams as the best teams because they're not watching them as they're becoming the best teams, which is the problem the NBA is having. You don't have the fans that aren't watching every night knowing who the best players and best teams are because they just want to see LeBron James in every championship.
I think part of that, though, is like a snake eating its tail because the coverage just focuses on the big market teams, and the coverage in some respects is lazier. It's easier to talk about the Cowboys every day than to talk about the Bengals and the Browns. But like as media continues to like conglomerize, I don't know if that's a word, and just get more condensed and focused into like these big markets, then you're going to get less and less really outstanding local coverage. And that's how it's been for the last few years. Like there's fewer opportunities to work in smaller markets now if you're a media member than there is to work at one of these major networks. And they're just going to keep covering what they always have been covering.
It's a like interesting, I guess, to maybe just us conversation because people hate the media talk, but like whose responsibility does it become to fix it, right? Like, is it the league or is it on the media partners? Because the media partners are just going to go to what they always go to where they know they're going to get the numbers, and they're not necessarily, like the national media isn't going to necessarily invest in, you know what, I need to develop the fans' interest in the league and the product and getting them to know the players. That's kind of on the league to let you know who their stars are and why you should be interested, where the media partners just want the numbers, so they just go to who they know will deliver them or who they hope will deliver them.
And there's always been skepticism for younger teams that are ascending, the old theory that you have to suffer a little bit, but in the few couple of years sample that we have of expanded playoffs and in this load management era, there have been kind of some screwy NBA finals when before it used to be pretty predictable. You have a devalued regular season and fans are like, nah, I don't trust you to get past the second round, just like you did last year. You fell on your face. So when you want to be serious and you want to actually clear some adversity in the postseason, that's when I'll pay attention to you.
I want to get the sound, though, of Charles Barkley going after Kendrick Perkins and ESPN in general in a way that bears monitoring, Greg, because you have heard Shaq and Charles doing something on Inside the NBA that I believe doesn't get seen very often. They're headed toward ESPN, and they're complaining about heading over to ESPN. There's some discomforts involved. I know Charles doesn't want to work there. I'm super interested to see how all of that plays out. But he's calling coworkers fools and idiots, or future coworkers, because he's complaining about what Jessica just mentioned, which is that anytime you turn into the main industry spokespeople on cheerleading and celebrating the sport. And I don't know whose responsibility it is here. Is it the media's responsibility to get fans properly informed and interested in change and the newcomers? Because the newcomers are here. They've arrived. Anthony Edwards is the reason that OKC didn't advance last year. Minnesota's less good. OKC has done some suffering. That OKC team was really good last year. Young. This year, they're better. They've grown. Holmgren is an important piece to OKC. And what have they lost? 11 times this year? Cleveland, as I mentioned, 3 double-digit winning streaks this year. They're dragging people. And Charles Barkley is saying of the media coverage what Jessica's saying, which is you can't just be talking about the Lakers and Steph all the time, but look at what LeBron Steph did on Christmas Day. It's the only game that was able to put a dent against the NFL in terms of attracting people because we are lazy about liking what we've always liked.
But respectfully, Charles Barkley doesn't watch the majority of the teams in the league either. Like, he never knows who's on what team coming into the league. Like, he's the last person that should be criticizing media networks only showing the games of like 5 teams.
Yeah, I think I'm like the second to last because I'm not even the biggest NBA fan. But I do think you can speak to it more broadly just outside of the NBA where, like, I feel like the people that host a lot of these shows and, like, are sort of like the vocal leaders of the sports don't realize how much fans listen to them when they're telling you a player is good or when they're telling you a team is good or a team is interesting. Like, a lot of people do listen to that, and it does impact the way they view something. And if you're just talking about the same teams being interesting and good over and over again, like, eventually you're probably going to be like, ugh, the Thunder, like, that's gross. But, you know, a decade ago when the Thunder were really good, I don't think it was very hard for people to view them that way and be excited to see that team make a run. It's just like a lot of things have changed in the last decade with how we're viewing media.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Also, historically, in terms of like really touting the game and trying to be the type of entity that gets as many possible people in the tent and lifting up the product, that's not really what TNT has done with its basketball coverage. It doesn't really lift up the product. Half the time it's the guys taking the piss about like being bored on another blowout that's at halftime, and they're just joshing each other, and that's what people are drawn to, the personalities, and they're just perpetuating that.
But when we talk about media responsibilities and we talk about the main voices in the NBA, not only talking about the same teams, but also gravitating toward the dramatic storylines that don't have much of anything to do with basketball. I'm going to play some of this Charles Barkley sound. He's been doing it a lot of times. I'm not even sure this is the right sound because I asked them to get it now and it doesn't look like the sound that I'm looking for. But I just wanted to ask the group and the people listening to this so that they understand the nature of the problem. If Shai Gilgeous-Alexander walked into your life right now, walked in front of you, would you recognize him? I'm asking general sports fan.
Just because of the commercial, the What a Pro Wants. That's you, and he's tall.
Yeah, he's very
tall. And I would have been like, who's this tall guy? You look familiar. What a Pro Wants commercial.
He's not that tall, though, because I think he's not walking in like 7-footers walk into a room and you know that he's a basketball player. He's tall.
I'm starting to realize I think I watch the most NBA of anyone in this room.
I don't doubt it.
That's a problem.
I don't think that you do, but let's see.
She watches every night with Lehman.
This room,
she watches the Knicks with regularity.
I watch basketball every night. I watched all the women's conference tournaments this weekend. Wow. What a weekend. UCLA, Big Ten champs. That will never not sound weird to me. However, I should not be the one watching the most pro basketball ever.
Did you get mad at Draymond Green for going after your man's beloved Karl Anthony Towns unfairly by suggesting the other day and then apologizing awkwardly that Karl Anthony Towns did not play in the Knicks-Warriors game because he was afraid of Jimmy Butler?
Okay, yes. Like the initial claim was weak, but then the apology was just so bad. The apology was like, well, the show must go on. It was just like not really there, and it kind of bummed me out because Karl Anthony Towns was at a funeral, so he missed the game. Like one of his friends died of cancer or something. It was just very uncomfortable. The whole thing made me feel super uncomfortable to watch.
Some people are really mad at Draymond. Really mad. Like I saw think pieces calling for Draymond and Turner to evaluate the relationship with Draymond. Yeah, that's a real bad look for Draymond. Yeah. Awful.
Let's play the sound here of Charles Barkley going after what could be his future coworkers.
I saw a fool idiot on TV talking about the Lakers save the NBA.
Save the NBA?
Yeah. He's an idiot and a fool, but he know who he is. What's his name, Shaq?
Which one you talking about?
Kendrick Perkins.
Oh.
He said the Lakers, first of all, the Lakers have had a great 2 weeks. He said the Lakers saved the NBA season. That's because them fools on the other network, which we're going to be working for next year, that's all they talk about. Let me tell y'all something.
Tell me something.
And first of all, I want all the smoke. I don't whistle when I walk by the graveyard or anything like that.
I don't whistle when I walk by the graveyard.
That's right.
I like that.
Hey, man,
I'm stealing that one.
The Lakers are doing great. Got a long way to go. But the reason the season's been going great for the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Y'all just want to talk about the Warriors and the Lakers. They're both doing great. Don't get me wrong. If I turn out to be wrong, I got no problem with that. But y'all are idiots because y'all talk about the Lakers and the Warriors all the time.
Do you know the history of whistling when you walk past a graveyard? Because I've heard the expression, but I don't know what it actually means. Why do you whistle when you're going past a graveyard?
I honestly don't know. To appear nonchalant, maybe, to appear as if you're not frightened to death.
But the way he was using it is saying, I don't whistle when I walk past a graveyard, and I just don't know why someone whistles by a graveyard.
Maybe that's a bad omen. Like
you wake the dead, maybe,
You're in a happy mood while walking past something somber. I don't know. My dad actually loves a graveyard.
I do, and have never whistled in one.
It's to pretend to be cheerful and not afraid of passing a graveyard.
That makes sense.
So did he use it correctly? I don't whistle when I walk past a graveyard. Did he use it correctly? I don't.
He did.
Is he unbothered? Did he come off unbothered?
Are you guys like my dad though? Like if my dad, if we're traveling somewhere
I'm
in
not
our
like your
hotel, there's a graveyard. He's just like, all right, I'm gonna go walk over to the graveyard. He just likes
all
to.
the time. We stop at graveyards.
Are you afraid of ghosts?
No, I embrace them.
Have you seen one before?
I think most ghosts are good. I have not. I mean, not in a physical sense,
Have you felt one?
There have been imaginary, perhaps, apparition.
You're in the garage late at night. All of a sudden, you hear something. Is that Alan Cherry?
No, not really. No.
Why do you do this? What is it that you do? Do you ever meet fellow grave lovers?
Sometimes, yeah. It's surprising that you'll meet people who aren't there to see a loved one. They're there because they're fascinated by history, and graveyards are history. I mean, I think the oldest one in the United States in Boston has, like Civil War generals and everything buried next to, 20 feet away from people who died a couple of years ago.
There's older graveyards. We just built stadiums on them.
Yeah, they.
You mean like Revolutionary War, though?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's also like ancient burial mounds all over.
Yeah, we stop at a lot of them. I never pass a graveyard that I don't want to see.
I do fancy a stroll through a graveyard if it's convenient.
Nah, that's odd.
Chelsea play right next to a real old Gothic graveyard.
Yeah.
And it's on the way over to the grounds. I like to cut through and just see the history.
So you just small talk with people at the graveyards when you're there?
Sometimes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's your icebreaker?
Do you ever whistle?
I'm not a whistler. My dad whistled a lot. But like
Wild Bill?
when we were in New Orleans, I love the New Orleans graveyard with all the above ground stuff and
There's
everything.
probably multiple.
And I had a conversation there with an older woman who was there not to see anyone, but because she also was fascinated with graveyards.
Maybe she was a ghost.
Yeah.
How do you know?
How do I know she wasn't a ghost?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
Did you ask?
It's not like I poked her to see if my
that would have been odd.
Finger went through dust.
You don't think this is weird, that all of this is strange? Certainly you're not running into several other people often that are interested in just going to a graveyard where put it on the poll, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Do you ever walk through the graveyard that doesn't have anyone in it who you know?
I think a lot of people do. But I'm not one to strike up a conversation with a stranger. So.
But what is happening here that your family clearly doesn't want to do this with you, right? You're getting someplace with your family, and there goes Dad again. He's wandering toward the graveyard.
Like I can remember as a kid, like in New Hampshire. I don't even remember why we were there in Maine, somewhere up north. We're at our hotel, and my dad's just like, I'm gonna walk. I saw a graveyard down the street. I'm going to go. And we're just like, I'll stay. Thank you.
Oh, my God. If we're at a hotel in walking distance to a major graveyard, I almost said I've died and gone to heaven, which would have been a weird thing to say. I edited myself.
This guy's going to be co-anchoring his 21st Selection Sunday. 21 of them he's got on the resume. It is next Sunday, 6 p.m. Eastern Time on CBS. We are going to do our own Selection Sunday show for fun next Sunday live. He's also the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Hoops HQ. Seth Davis with us. Again, 21 years is crazy. I don't think he's been on since last year at about this time, so I will start in the obvious place. Are you caught up on White Lotus, sir?
You have named, first of all, it's amazing to hear you say that I've done 21 shows because I'm only 26. So obviously I'm the Doogie Howser of sports broadcasting. You've actually named, Dan, one of the shows I actually watch. I am not a shows guy or a movie. I'm even worse with movies. So I've watched a few shows. I am not caught up on White Lotus. I am through season 2. I know we're in season 3. I've watched a couple episodes of Severance. I have no idea what's going on. But then again, I usually don't have any idea what's going on. So it's all good.
Are you guys falling asleep during Severance? I like Severance, but I keep falling. I cannot stay awake for Severance. There's something about the tone and the pacing of it that is so slow that I'm perpetually, even though I like it, I'm perpetually falling asleep during it.
Greg?
100%. 100%. First of all, part of it is I usually watch it at night with my wife, and I'm 54 and I'm lazy. So yeah, by the time we get about halfway through, I nod off, and then I have to watch, the last 15 minutes the next morning during my workout or something to stay caught up. So these are first world problems for sure.
I apologize for not responding to that. I have never watched Severance. I wouldn't even have heard of it, except my wife watches it because she watches everything. I watch very little TV, although I do love White Lotus.
Seth, are you recommending anything these days? What's the latest recommendation that you've gotten that's any good?
I'm telling you, I don't have between sport. I'm a big reader. I can give you book recommendations.
No,
so
you know what?
We'll
It's
do
okay.
a book club.
No, well, are you built like Tim Kirkshin, like Mark Stein? We have a couple of people here who are such experts in their field that they are lopsided and therefore do not have the kind of time to invest in other things because they're pouring themselves in so much to not just college basketball, but this new endeavor that you've started, Hoops HQ, with. Is this a billionaire friend of yours, or is this somebody who's just a business relationship?
It's a business relationship, and he's hopefully a smart investor and likes media. And we launched it in late October, and we're crushing it, man. We're just providing great coverage. It's interesting. College basketball, even though it's big, it's kind of a niche sport, right? Basically, if you're not football, you're a niche sport, and that includes the NBA. Although the NBA has a way of penetrating through a lot of the clutter that other sports have a hard time. So, a lot of the sort of main media outlets, they really cover college basketball this time of year. But they don't do it 12 months all in the way we do it at Hoops HQ. So certainly encourage your many listeners to go to hoopshq.com and check us out. We're going to be ready for March. And also, by the way, the transfer portal and free agency season in college basketball in many ways draws more of an audience than even March Madness. So we got a lot of work to do.
I want to talk to you about that as an endeavor as you continue to evolve in the media space. But before I do that, can you please explain to me whether or not you're surprised that Rick Pitino has been allowed to climb back toward the top of the sport, given how his last tenure ended?
No, because he can win. The ability for people to get past certain things is directly correlated to your ability to win, and no one can ever question Rick's ability to win. It's interesting, Dan. The thing that he was eventually fired for in relation to the FBI investigation was like the biggest nothing burger of all time. I mean, that case was an incredible waste of time, money, energy, attention. Basically these FBI agents heard all these low-level scammers scamming each other, and they thought they were telling the truth. So when one guy tells another, hey, man, I got Pitino, I got Self, I got Larinaga, I got this guy, the FBI thinks, hey, all we got to do is move in on those guys and they'll flip. Well, it turns out there was nothing to flip to. So the problem with Rick was the optics of his being even tangentially linked to that case, on top of the other things that had happened, some of which were directly his fault, some of which were his fault by responsibility. It was that accumulation. But there were other places, Kansas in particular, basically said to the NCAA, like, give us everything you got. And they stuck by Bill Self, and nothing happened to him. And he was in it considerably deeper than Rick was at the time. So there might be a little bit, I don't know what the opposite of buyer's remorse is at Louisville with Pitino, maybe firer's remorse, if that's a thing. But no, I'm not surprised because he's a great coach. And you know, in today's era, Dan, with the portal, you can rebuild very quickly. And when you have a coach like Rick Pitino, you got guys who want to play in the NBA. And so they want to play for Rick Pitino. So not surprised at all.
In college athletics, we've seen a little bit more parity in football than I guess we anticipated. Everyone assumed the SEC would just get stronger. They've been challenged by the Big Ten and other schools. But in the other sports, the SEC's financial advantage is really sticking out, particularly men's basketball, baseball, women's basketball. On the other side of the coin, you have the ACC, and I know this was several years in the making. They're not top dog by a long shot anymore, and you've had NC State, which made a Final Four run last year, part ways with its coach. Miami, which made a Final Four run 2 years ago, part ways with its coach. Leonard Hamilton might have won a championship were not for COVID over at FSU. Parting ways over there. What do you make of what's happening inside the ACC? Are they feeling the pressure?
Well, I think it's a great question. I think they thought they were above it, or at least didn't have to do it. You know, it's a different type of culture, different type of setup. I mean, there are some private schools inside the ACC. There are, you know, public schools that are not necessarily as invested in even in the concept of college athletics. You know, even Syracuse is a private school. It's big, but you know, I mean, let's be honest. In the SEC, you know, some of these places have been operating like this for a very long time. So this is just a matter of paperwork. Now everything is above board, and you know, it's the old saying, adapt or die. And you know, the ACC might have a storied history, but it's past history, you know, and if you're not forward looking, you're in trouble. I mean, for example, you know, North Carolina has been struggling again. And, you know, North Carolina just in the last couple of weeks hired a general manager. I did not know that they didn't have a general manager. I kind of assumed they did. John Shire was the first person in sports to even think of this position at the college level. Now everybody not only has one, but you have to have one. News this morning that Steph Curry is going to be the assistant GM at Davidson. I mean, all he has to do is cut one check and his job is over. So it's a great life lesson really for teachers and parents and all of us and business leaders, especially, that you cannot be stuck in past thinking. You cannot think about, well, this is the way we've always done it. It's that, like that old Wayne Gretzky saying, you know, what made Gretzky great isn't that he skated to the puck. He skated to where the puck was going. The ACC skated to where the puck used to be, and now they're paying the price. They have a lot of catching up to do.
You mentioned Steph Curry and NIL. James Harden says that he is going to spend a lot of money to make Arizona State even better than Arizona State already is. How much of this is going to be a future influx where NBA guys can have a role in making sure that they take care of their alma maters?
It's where we are, man. I mean, it's just a reality. And it's funny you mentioned about Miami having fallen on hard times, but when they made the Final Four, they had their own version of Steph Curry named John Ruiz down in I think he's a Miami grad, but he was a Miami booster and a billionaire guy, and he gave them a lot of money to buy players that helped them get to the Final Four. And then he and his business fell on hard times. There was a SEC investigation and all kind, and so he's not paying the piper anymore. And look what happened to Miami. So, but the real coming change, Dan, is a genuine revenue sharing model where beginning in July, assuming this case settlement gets approved, which looks like the judge is going to do, every school now can spend up to, they're not required, up to $20 million to give to their athletes. Now they can spend that however they want. And it's going to be fascinating to see how that all breaks down. Because if you're at a place like Auburn right now, which is one of the top teams in college basketball, Alabama, certainly, obviously the first dollars out the door are going to football. And so how much really is left for men's basketball? And then you have all the other women's sports and this big question of how Title IX is going to play into it. So there's a lot more unknown than known. But the only thing we know is that players are going to have money in their pockets. And if you don't have money to put in your players' pockets at a competitive rate, whether it's directly through revenue sharing or through the Steph Currys and James Hardens of the world or other NIL arrangements, there's not as much money out there as maybe some people think. But this is the new paradigm. And if you're in the business of college sports, you better be adjusting to what's happening and what's going to happen as opposed to the way things used to be.
So given all of that, is there any chance Cooper Flagg comes back next season at Duke?
Well, Jessica, let me put it this way. There's a better chance that I will play next season for Duke than Cooper Flagg.
But
no,
the Wizards have the number 1 pick. Ugh, come on.
Yes. You know what? It's funny you say that because I'm a DC sports fan. Well, first of all, they haven't had the lottery. So I'm a Wizards fan. I go back to the old Bullets days with Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld and the Capitol Center in Landover. And I was down at Duke a couple of weeks ago interviewing Cooper for Fox Sports, and I kind of looked him up and down and said, you look pretty good in a Wizards uniform. But the most Wizards thing ever is going to be they are not winning the lottery. Like, I am not even allowing myself mentally to go there. As far as the numbers are concerned, though, if you look at what Cooper Flagg's going to make in the NBA as the number 1 pick, Duke can't even touch that. So, but what we are seeing are players who would otherwise go to the draft in like the second round, or even guys who might not be drafted and would potentially go overseas, or guys who are coming out of high school and going to play for the NBA G League Ignite, which, by the way, doesn't even exist anymore. So all of this has really been great for college basketball. And, everybody's saying, oh, it's killing the transfer portal and all that. They point to things that kind of make us uncomfortable. If you look overall, the fact that players can now make real money playing college basketball, guess what? That means more of the really good ones are staying and returning to college basketball. And that's been very good, I think, for the enterprise.
Miami is introducing Laren Yeager's replacement today in Lucas from Duke. What do you think of that hire?
Well, I think it's a great hire. The very, very interesting part of that is the timing. And this is just one of those odd things. I presume this is going to be fixed. The transfer portal opens on March 24th. And so if Miami doesn't have a head coach, not only on the 24th, but really in the run up to the 24th, it's going to be way behind the 8 ball in terms of recruiting transfers. So that's basically the deal, as I understand it, that they presented to Lucas. And, a lot of credit should go to John Shire for being okay with it, because if John Shire put his foot down and said to Jay Lucas, hey, I gave you a chance to come here. We need you for the stretch run. We're trying to win a championship. I'm not saying Jay would have done it, but it would have been a different situation. So it's a great, lesson in terms of leadership, of service, doing what's best for the people who work for you. But it's a problem because the portal opening on the 24th, so you're going to have 16 schools who are still playing in the NCAA tournament. They could move that back, even a week and a half, 2 weeks, and kind of ease that pressure. Football has a much harder problem, because for 95, 98 probably % of the schools, I guess whatever it is, 90%, their season basically ends in Thanksgiving. Now you have these bowl games that don't really matter in the grand scheme, and so kids can enter the transfer portal, but you still have 12 teams in the playoff that doesn't even begin for several weeks. And that's a very, very long lead time, and there's really not much they can do about it because there's so much time between the end of the regular season and the start of the postseason. But I'm hoping in college basketball that they'll be able to move the portal back a week or two, but there may be other factors, particularly academics, involved in that I'm not, fully briefed on, that would prevent that. But it seems to me, 1 or 2 weeks shouldn't be all that hard.
Chris Cody, always on top of things as the executive producer, has accused you in my ear of stifling a burp during that answer. Is that accurate? What would the breakfast have been? What would have been the breakfast of choice for a Seth Davis?
See, Chris needs to roll with me because I'm kind of an intermittent faster. So I have I'm in LA, by the way, so I'm up early. Dan, I love you, but it was for Leah that I'm doing this because I don't say no to her. That's my rule. Okay. So I got my little MCT oil and my ghee butter and my early morning coffee. Chris, you may want to give it a shot. And then I basically won't eat any food probably till I have my workout.
What
the
I
protein
said,
powder.
I said it as a compliment because you're such a pro that it looked like just a little, it looked like a little gas or air came up, and you stayed with your point. It was, and you just kind of stifled it.
I would have no problem admitting to an almost burp or even an all-in-out belch. I've admitted to many worse things than that. So just being factual.
Well,
but you should still try the intermittent fasting, Chris.
Give us some more information. He will never try that. It's not something that he's interested in any way. Can you give me some of the other ways that you've gone full Los Angeles with your kale smoothies and your ghee butter?
Well, I was kind of there. I moved out here. I am a big juicer. I try to have a nice green juice drink every day. The key is no fruit, no sugar in there. So my concoction is parsley, spinach, kale, cucumber, lemon, and ginger. It tastes a lot better than that sounds. The lemon and ginger makes it taste good. So it's about being hydrated, being healthy, but don't get it twisted. I can put away cheesecake like no one, I love a good steak. I mean, I do like to eat. So, as I like to say, everything in moderation, including moderation.
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Do you think that Seth Davis could eat a cheesecake like nobody else at Le Batard Show? Tell us about your stand-up comedy career.
Man, I didn't know you did research like this, bro. That's a little, I don't know that I would call it a career. I know it shocks you because I'm not funny at all. It was basically it was basically an itch I wanted to scratch. I was living in New York City. I grew up like so many people listening to George Carlin and Rich Pryor, and especially Rich Little, great impressionist.
You don't do impressions, do you? Did you do impressions?
Not in this. I have to think about what I want to do for you. Yeah, of course I can do impressions.
Go ahead.
Well, let's not put some pressure on him. Let's give him some time to think about which impression he'd like to unleash. But also, please continue answering the question. How much stand-up did you do? When did you realize it wasn't for you, etc.?
Should I do this whole answer? Is Rich Little doing Ronald Reagan?
Yes, duh.
I always listen to George Carlin, and one day I had a friend who took a comedy class at the new school, and there you go again.
The well is key to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
It's really
that's it.
It's every Ronald Reagan impersonation has a well in front of it.
You can flip that right into Mike Tyson. I don't mind losing to Buster Douglas. I just want to lose Staley. Anyway, I grew up listening to George Carlin and Richard Pryor, all these guys. And it was like, everyone's like, oh, I could never get on stage and do that, right? So I was living in New York City. A great friend of mine named Mitch Brenner was taking a stand-up comedy class at the New School down in Greenwich Village. And as part of the class, you take a few classes and then you get some stage time. And I could never do that. I can't believe you're doing that. I could never do that. And then he showed me video of him and his fellow students doing their stand-up. And of course, being students, they were awful. And I watched that and I said, oh, I can suck. I didn't realize sucking was an option. That's easy. So I'm going to go out there and suck. And I did. But, at the time, you could get 5 minutes of stage time if you brought 3 audience members. And those audience members, I think they had to pay a $20 cover and a 2-drink minimum. And I had a lot of friends in New York, so I would space them out between shows and kind of develop my material. So I had a few good nights on it. I kind of hit the low-level circuit. But to be really good at anything, you got to be able to commit yourself fully to it. And I was at Sports Illustrated, things were happening for me there. So at a certain point, I just kind of decided I was done. I did it but I will say this, that was right about when I was starting to do a lot more television, and you can see how those skills are translatable from the stage to the small screen. So but I've got a lot of mileage out of mentioning it in my bio, so thanks for picking up on it.
He will be co-anchoring the 21st Selection Sunday of his career this Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern on CBS. He's also the co-founder and editor-in-chief of Hoops HQ. You have just mentioned something that it is that I wanted to sort of explore with you, which is the idea of paths not taken. You mentioned Sports Illustrated. Your how sad, or what's the saddest you get these days thinking about what Sports Illustrated has become versus what it is you thought you were going to do when you joined Sports Illustrated however many years ago?
Well, the only constant in life is change. And again, it's a great example of an entity not adapting and being stuck in the way things were. And especially when the people making those decisions are so vested in the status quo, that becomes difficult. So, you have two businesses. One is Blockbuster and one is Netflix. Explain to your listeners under the age of 40 or even 45 what Blockbuster is. There's a Blockbusters everywhere. And now look at Netflix, and now nobody knows what Blockbuster is. So that's kind of what happened to Sports Illustrated. I will say, though, that I'm very pleased with the way that Sports Illustrated has reconstituted itself with all of the tumult. And, there was a point in time there where we thought it was literally gone completely. So it's still there. It's still a very good monthly magazine. They still have some really good writers there. Chris Mannix and Tom Verducci and Pat Forty does a great job in college sports. I mean, they have some really good people there. Steve Cannella, the guy who's running the magazine as the managing editor, has been there long. In fact, he and I started on the same day. We shared an office, July 1995. But, I think with disruptions, Dan, and changes, and I know you're an old newspaper hack like me, there's a lot of opportunities. And, what I'm doing with Hoops HQ is a great example. I mean, we have this new creator economy where, if you're willing to hustle a little bit and just think creatively, and use the things that got you there, which is access, storytelling, shoe leather. People want to read, people want to listen, and they'll even give you a couple of bucks for the ability to do that. So I'm not saying it's easy, but life is not easy and life is not fair. And that's kind of where we are. Sports Illustrated is the company that had a chance to buy ESPN in the early 80s, and I guess figured maybe cable TV was just a fad. So that's one of many decisions that didn't work out so well, I guess.
Before we get rid of you here, sleepers, give us 3 of them. Let's go. Give us the teams that people need to be picking when they get to their brackets.
Okay. Well, you had one that punched its ticket to the dance, as we say. Drake, yesterday, the Drake Bulldogs, really interesting story in that their coach, Ben McCollum, the job came open because the coach moved to West Virginia. So they hired Ben McCollum, who's a Division II coach, and he took a bunch of his Division II players. He won a national championship at the D2 level, brought them with him to Drake, and they won the Missouri Valley Conference regular season, and now they've won the tournament, which is really, really hard to do. They've won all year. Best player in the league, and Bennett Sturts, just a really talented guard. They're one of the slowest teams in the country, and I do like teams that play a slower tempo because it's much easier to take a team that wants to run and slow it down than take a team that wants to play slow and speed it up. So that's an advantage. St. Mary's also plays slow. I would watch out for them. Out west, UC San Diego in the Big West, similar story with some D2 transfers. And this is their first year in Division I, probably in position to win an at-large bid if they don't make the tournament. Will Wade is doing great things at McNeese. I think he's probably going to move on. You want to talk about Rick Pitino's past. Will Wade is a whole nother conversation. And then St. Mary's. I talk about a slow tempo, playing grinding defense. They've already beaten Gonzaga twice. Randy Bennett has another really good team with a lot of international players, the type of team that no one's going to want to see. I think it's only a matter of time between kind of like what San Diego State did and breaking through to the Final Four. I've long thought it's only a matter of time before St. Mary's has one of those runs. Maybe this is the year.
Good seeing you. We will check in with you on Sunday, sir. Thank you for being on with us. Good seeing you again.
All right, I'll see you next year, God willing.
See ya. We've got to get to a very expensive Cheeto. We have to get to some unfortunate wording that a broadcaster used on a California game, and we have to get to a very fast 70-year-old who is not Greg Cody. That is Greg Cody and his son breathing very heavy. At the end of the show, toward the end of the show, Greg forgets that he is on the air and he just breathes with his giant nostrils.
Well, they usually tell me to put the mic closer to me. This time it was too close by a quarter of an inch.
Now you're in peak comfort.
Well, I'm relaxed.
How fast do you think you could run 100 meters?
Probably 15 seconds.
Do you think you could run as fast as this 70-year-old right here is running 100 meters in just a second faster, a second and a half faster than Greg Cody thinks that he can run? a 100-meter dash. This is pretty fast for a 70-year-old. Tomorrow we're going to have a corn dog eating competition. Greg,
Look at this guy.
Greg, this guy is
He would
going
smoke
very
you.
fast. You think that you would run 1.5 seconds slower than that guy did on a 100-meter dash?
29 seconds.
Obviously, the film was sped up. Like
It was not sped up.
That wasn't real time.
That is real time. The wind was blowing through his hair. He would have been faster if not his hair slowing him down aerodynamically.
See, I don't have that problem.
He's right about that.
Okay, I'm gonna adjust my estimate slightly from 15 seconds to 17.5.
We're not going to try it because
I would
we're,
not do that to
We're
you.
afraid of you falling on the track and breaking a bunch of brittle bones.
I would do it on a soft surface.
Tell us what's
That
coming
would
up.
not- How would you run on a soft surface?
I mean, I gotta, I don't want to break a hip.
Yeah, like on sand or the
I only
beach.
got 2 hips.
Yeah,
I
that'll
don't want
be
to break
easier.
one.
We
Tell
should
us,
do a beach race.
Yeah, beach race.
Beach race.
Yay,
Beach race.
Beach
Beach
day.
race. Beach day. Beach race.
Beach day. Beach race.
You couldn't be more bored and indifferent while delivering content right now. You are so ready to leave. You're just ready to leave. You're
I'm not ready to
You
leave.
didn't even sing Beach Day with any enthusiasm. You just went, yay. It was just you couldn't have been any more bored while delivering what you were delivering.
You think you call it bored because I'm relaxed, because I'm supine.
Mm-hmm.
I'm relaxed. I work better relaxed.
That's the thing about beach days. You relax.
Exactly.
What's coming up on the Greg Cody Show featuring Greg Cody?
We got a lot of good stuff on the new episode 261 that dropped today. And the headline, I guess, would be the great Tony Kornheiser reacts to being named the #1 podcast host guest in Greg Cody Show history.
You're always better when you're relaxed.
Yeah, you are bored.
Reaction by Tony the K.
Is this the episode where you do the number 18th spice also?
Herb?
Number 19 herb.
Yeah, because last week we did our revealing the top 100 guests, so we skipped Herb of the Week last week.
Oh, no.
So he does reveal in this episode the 19.
Did you just reveal the #1
He did.
guest in the history of your? Is that something that's been revealed on your podcast today? Is it?
Yeah, this past week it was.
This past week.
And so this week we have a reaction from Tony Kornheiser.
There's no way he was on because he doesn't do much.
No, he
of
was.
that.
We had him on. I mean, you got to listen. To
I don't
what he
believe
said,
you.
but-
I believe that it's.
Why would he lie?
Him on. I don't believe. Why would he lie to sell his podcast? And he doesn't
It
care
sells
whether
itself,
it's the
though.
truth
Yeah.
or not.
Well, that's how you get Tony Kornheiser on. You just make him #1. You say, Tony, guess what? Big honor. You're #1. He says, you know what? Gregory, Cody, I respect the hell out of you. I'm on.
We have him on, not for a long time, but maybe a minute and a half.
For a
2
good
minutes.
time?
It's a good time. It was a great time.
Yeah.
Le Batard didn't even make the top 10, so he's sore.
Wow.
He finished one spot
Who was
behind
the
Gary
most
the Bag Rosenfeld.
upset with their ranking?
Well, Le Batard was, that's for sure.
Yeah. Dan, you don't need to be upset. I mean, it's subjective. It's a 3-person panel, 1 3s or 5s.
Right.
So I thought you were great when you were on. If it were up to me, I would have given you a 5.
The most offended was Uncle Dick because we forgot to put him on.
Yeah, we completely
What?
So
You
we
forgot
went-
Uncle Dick?
So we went back to the next episode and we're like, all right, we're putting him in.
So disappointed. in
See you later,
myself.
Matt Pinelli.
Good. I like that. No, we did forget Uncle Dick, which is unheard of. Unfathomable. All the other uns. It's unheard of. Unfathomable.
Yeah, you mentioned
All the other ones,
Unnecessary.
too, yeah.
You mentioned only
Unneeded.
those two.
Right?
Unbelievable, really.
Unimaginable, right?
Yeah.
Un-American.
Un-American? Well, I don't know about un-American, but all the other uns were accurate.
I'm glad I've never been asked.
Uncouth would work.
Glad I've never been asked what's a good time for the 100 meters because I gotta be honest with you, just not getting around to learning exactly what a meter is. I think it's about this, but I don't know for sure. If we had a contest in here, I think a lot of Americans would also fall well short of what a meter is.
Well, I only know because of Olympic timing. Like the Olympic gold medal candidates run under 10. You know, like 9. What's a great world
He
time?
just said he doesn't know.
I don't know.
9.5. I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
If you would have
I think-
asked me
I think,
before
like-
that clip, I would have been like 13.
Well,
Is
I'm
it
gonna
like
go-
9.2? Why is that ringing a bell?
That could be. You could be right. People are getting faster all the time.
That's true.
So I'm going to double my time and up my estimate to 18.5 seconds. Okay, because I don't pretend that at my age that I'm going to compete.
When's the last time you sprinted?
I run.
You don't.
He's
run.
right.
No, I
You
do.
don't run.
I don't believe it.
You don't even walk.
What do you have? What, you run in those
don't
deck
even
shoes?
walk.
You don't? Do you even own sneakers?
I do
Like,
own sneakers.
We're talking to
Yeah.
a man that when his doctor asked him about how active he is, he says, I walk around my house a lot.
Well, and he tries to tell me I no longer have that doctor. He tries to tell me that's not exercise. I'm walking a mile or two every day.
A mile.
Yeah.
What difference does it make where you take your steps? You know what I mean? Get your
Right.
10,000 steps in. If I choose to do it in the comfort
Yes.
of my own home,
It's
what do you
about-
care,
Because
doctor?
if you're taking like 5 steps at a time, it's not the same as going for a mile walk.
It's about heart rate.
You replaced McGillicuddy?
It's more than 5. No, well, this was a different doctor who shall remain nameless.
Why? Put the name out there. Let's cost this doctor his degree.
This guy's trying to tell me that you have to cardio and you have to sweat and this and breathe fast.
How dare he?
Sounds like a quack to me.
This monster.
I got a big L-shaped house.
Mhm.
The amount of
It's actually-
steps I take during a day is
Yeah.
crazy big.
With the game room of Curios, you can do a full circle.
And there's probably
But
steps,
do
right?
you?
There's
But
a
do you
step up
ever
and
do a
down.
full circle?
You bowl?
Not intentionally.
He does bowl.
I do bowl. That's heavy lifting right there. A 14.
You take one step to the lane and one step
Yeah,
back to
but,
the chair
but
where
you're
you drink a
tossing in
beer
some
and
curls.
eat pizza.
Nah, but you're tossing some bicep curls every once in a
Right.
while.
He carries his bowling bag from the car
There
into
you
the
go.
bowling
I do.
alley.
It's a 15-pound ball times however many times I'm lifting it.
You have your
back and
bowling
forth,
shoes in
up
there?
and down.
My dad, the only bowler in the league that always walks out of the bowling alley in his bowling shoes.
Chris,
Well,
you completely
saves time.
changed your mind about whose side you were on midway through the last 2 minutes.
Greg's
What
making some good
happened?
arguments here.
You come
You there?
in and out of the bowling alley wearing your bowling shoes. You
Right.
drive to the bowling alley in your bowling
Yes,
shoes.
Right.
And like people are like putting covers on their bowling shoes because like you can't go in the bathroom. You don't want anything.
ridiculous.
My dad just walks outside in the
Please.
bowling,
Pish
bright blue.
posh.
I'm wearing my bowling shoes home. If I'm stopped and I see a bowling game break out over there, I can stop. I can go over and say, "Hey, let me in," and then I.
Do you stop at a bar on the way home sometimes
I hope
from the
not.
bowling alley
No.
while wearing the bowling
no,
shoes?
No, that doesn't happen.
What about your golf shoes? Do you change in and out of those?
That he usually forgets and then ends up playing golf in his boat shoes.
Typically,
I can count like a dozen times in my life we've shown up to the golf course. And I left my shoes at home, so he's in boat shoes now on the third tee.
And with my game, it doesn't even affect it. It doesn't even hurt it. But golf shoes I have worn home because they don't clickety clack. They're nowadays they're not like metal spikes or anything, so they're comfortable.
Do you wear
as a
your
matter of
tap
fact.
shoes home?
My what?
Your tap shoes for tap dancing.
No, I don't tap dance.
Really?
No.
Good,
Why
though.
not?
That was
My
good.
mother used to.
That's good. To
His
follow
Ruth
that.
used
That's
to.
good.
Hold on,
Both
hold
of
on.
you.
Ruth was a tapper.
My
Go
mother
on.
tap danced. It's in the family. I have never tried it.
Jake Tapper.
Jake Tapper
She's
is right. Well said.
I think that we're here castigating and frowning upon Greg when really we should be celebrating his preparedness. At any point in time, Greg can board a boat. We know that.
Or bowl.
Or bowl.
Yeah,
If a game breaks out.
that's right.
Can I get the sound of that Los Angeles broadcaster, please, using phrasing the Los Angeles broadcaster should not have used during USC and Juju Watkins obviously playing very well, as she always does.
Juju Watkins has caught the women's basketball world by storm. Certainly lit the world of Los Angeles on fire.
Ouch.
She said the world of Los Angeles, right? Not the city. So I think she's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd call my lawyer if I was her and kind of get away from that as much as possible for trying to figure out what's going on there,
Yeah, you got to walk that one back.
Yep.
She didn't.
Give her time. She will. Right?
I don't think so.
No?
I don't think anyone is making a big deal out of this. I think it is just an athletic cliche that most people probably didn't care about or notice,
Yeah.
and therefore there will be no need for an apology of any sort, and there will no need for a clarification of any sort.
I think that we're bringing it up on a major national show. Now that the onus is on her.
Yeah.
You got to apologize. You misspoke. You know how many people lost their homes in the Los Angeles fires?
Who is that? Who is that? They're just
That's the mob, yeah.
Yeah, it was an outraged mob.
And speaking as one. It was
Yeah.
it was all of them speaking at exactly the same syllable count and
Right.
words at the same
Yes.
time. And
It
it's
was
a
like
chorus of them.
It was like the world's longest chant.
It wasn't that long. It was just
Oh, it was longer than the chant.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, come on.
You got to walk it back because insurance companies will grasp at anything these days. You know what I mean? They're going to say, look, we have it right here on the record. It's saying that Juju started these fires, and then boom. Now it is they're not going to cover any claims.
Why don't you just leave now, Greg? Just leave since you're just since you've
No.
already
He's
since you've
no,
already,
he's doing
since
great.
you've already checked out.
Or
why
just
don't
close
you
your eyes, take a nap.
Just
I'm not napping.
Close your computer. Close. Just
Put your legs crisscross applesauce and
just pack everything up and just go. You've completed a wonderful day. You're finished. You
Why
can
are you
just
trying to get rid of me?
I am kind of curious if in the next 5 minutes of this segment you could fall asleep. Why don't you take your headphones off
No, I'm
and
not
try
sleeping.
earnestly to fall asleep?
I'm not the least bit tired. Here, you want me to sit up? All right, let me sit up at attention.
Nap day.
Here, I'm sitting up at attention now. Ramrod straight. Look.
What?
My shoulders back.
Ramming it.
I've never exactly ramming it. I've never sat taller. Right now. Sitting regally.
Your son, in an effort to bail me out of the particular quagmire that you have dragged us into, just shouted urgently in my ear, "I have the Cheeto. I have the Cheeto." He's just shouting. He's so used to producing you with Yeti on your podcast that he has rushed into the breach and come up with a topic that all of us could jump into, which is an $89,000 Cheeto. Let's check out this particular Cheeto. What does it say? What is it? Where is this being purchased?
Cheeto-zard.
Why
An
is
unnamed buyer purchased it. I think it was Darren Ravel.
Maybe.
And what was it indeed $89,000? And why was it purchased for that much?
Because it looks like Charizard.
I'm telling you, you give me a bag of Cheetos, I'll find one just like that.
No.
Well, you
I bet
should.
there's one in every
It's
bag.
a great way for you to make some money.
Maybe we'll do this tomorrow. I'll pour out a bag of Cheetos and I will find something else in there that it won't be maybe Charizard in particular, but it'll be like something famous that we can then sell.
That's a fraudulent Cheeto. I'll tell you exactly what happened. Somebody welded together like 5 or 6 different Cheetos into that design.
That's not what happened.
And it can be done. It can be done.
How do you guys feel about Cheetos? When was the last time any of you? When was the last time you had a Cheeto?
7 minutes ago.
I love the very crunchy Cheetos. I don't like the soft ones, the big puffy ones.
Yeah, I don't like the big puffy ones either.
Well, I don't think those are Cheetos.
Aren't they?
Well, no, Cheetos has a brand of that.
Cheese puffs.
Yeah, cheese puffs. But I like that type of Cheeto. I don't care if it costs $90,000. Put that in front of me, I'll eat it in a minute and a half.
Well, there was another Cheeto that went for sale on auction that looked like Harambe in 2017. That one got sold for I think almost $100,000.
How is that possible? How is that? How is that being?
Ask Darren Ravel.
How is that something that people are doing and that cannot be a business of investment that appreciates? There is simply no way that you can tell me that there's a way to purchase an $89,000 Cheeto that will then appreciate in value. How is that? Is the price tag that is assigned to the Cheeto?
Think about the conversation starter that, like all your parties now.
It's not a good
You
conversation
can be like, look, I have
starter.
a Cheeto that looks like Charizard.
Yeah.
That's not a good conversation.
And the conversation. I mean, I can't help you.
Yeah.
Oh, we have Cheetos here now. Let's see if I can find
One of the
some.
apostles, I think.
How would you? Well, if you don't even know what Charizard is, how are you going to go through your bag of Cheetos and find one, Greg?
Yeah. Charizard. Is he the third stage of the Charmander evolution?
Oh, that cleared it up.
He's the
for Greg.
third stage of the Charmander evolution.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Do you know who?
Third or fourth?
Do you know who Harambe is? Do you know
the gorilla?
Yeah.
Yeah, this might be harder than I thought.
Passed away, I believe. God rest
Anyone have
his
any
soul.
weld?
What?
I'd like to weld these together.
Weld?
It's not like a welder. I mean,
Does anyone have any weld?
I posited off mic. Do you think Flaming Hot Cheetos have surpassed regular Cheetos?
No way.
I didn't even know there were regular Cheetos. I thought they only came in hot.
Hot Cheetos are a thing, but still the best-selling is according to ChatGPT. Still the most popular and best-selling one is your traditional crunchy Cheeto. But then
So that might
second,
be true.
So second is Flamin' Hot, which is
Puffs?
Puffs are third.
Yeah.
Cheetos Flamin' Hot Limon are fourth. Cheetos Cheddar Jalapeno fifth. Cheetos Extra Flamin' Hot sixth, and then Cheetos White Cheddar Baked seventh.
You guys made fun of me recently for loving the chili cheese Fritos, which are, put it on the poll at Le Batard Show, better chip. Is it a chip? Cheeto or Frito at Le Batard Show? Would the Cheeto count as a chip?
Yeah, I would.
But I don't think it
Let me ask ChatGPT.
is it. Is it? Put it on the
Yeah.
poll as well. Is the Cheeto a chip?
This one kind of looks like a seahorse.
Yeah, it does.
How much do you think I can get for this bad boy?
Well, we need a seahorse, a prominent seahorse, to die, and then just say, well,
Or we need a seahorse that looks like Jesus Christ.
Yeah, there you go.
Put it on the poll at Le Batard Show. Do you like the chili cheese Fritos? They're some of my favorites. I haven't had them in a while, but
I've had those. They're great. Yeah, I love Fritos because they're so salty.
do you prefer the Frito to the Cheeto, or do you have a do you?
Yes.
I don't like how messy the Cheeto is.
Well, you're talking about the crunchy Cheeto.
Not considered a chip because chip of what?
What is it?
You know, it's not really a chip. It's considered a snack, and it's put in the chip pile because of its association with being a salty, crunchy snack.
I'm glad we answered an important question today. Before we bring in Juju Gotti here, we have one more slight reveal here, and I think this is a little obvious based on an announcement we plan to make tomorrow, finally, for what it is that we're doing in entirety on April 13th. But we've got Boppy coming out of retirement for this domino tournament. We've got Ricky Williams coming out of retirement for this domino tournament. And right on the screen there, this seems a little obvious what's happening here. He's gigante. He acts like an animal. He has an enormous freaking endowment. There's a shadow in the background of someone else who will be revealed tomorrow. But this domino tournament is going to be April 13th. We're going to have the formal announcement on where and when and how it is you can get tickets tomorrow. But I'm told that Greg Cody is going to be playing dominoes in this tournament, even though he does not know how to play dominoes.
I know. I've been instructed. I believe I will be sitting next to him. I'm no expert dominoes player, but I know the rules.
Wait, you know who it is? I picked up the game.
Wait, Greg knows who, or Chris knows who it is?
No, we're talking about my dad's playing in it as well.
Jeez.
Right.
And he doesn't know how to play dominoes.
Well,
How is that possible?
As a kid, I used to play mahjong, which is also a tile game. And so there's an affinity there, you know.
It's not the same at all. It's
No,
not.
mahjong is one of the most difficult games in the world. 4 crack, 3 bam. I mean, even the terminology is like weird.
Did you play on one of those mahjong tables where like the dominoes just come like out of nowhere and then like move towards you and then you like put it in a secret compartment and they disappear? Have you seen those?
This was in the 30s. So
I just remember a lot of shuffling, a lot of tile shuffling. My mother used to play it with a bunch of older friends.
The tapper?
Of hers. Yeah. Yep.
I think it's making a comeback right now.
I think it is too. Yeah, I think it is too. But I did learn how to play that, so picking up, dominoes would be.
Put it on the poll at
easy.
Le Batard Show. Is mahjong making a comeback?
it'd be a walk in the cemetery.
Juju, what do you have for us today in the interest of updating the polls and updating what it is that people thought of today's show?
Today's show was wonderful, you feel me? Twitter having a couple of malfunctions today, so we wasn't able to put all the polls up just yet, but stay tuned and they'll be right there with a drop of a dime as soon as Elon gets it together. But yeah, I definitely think you guys Greg hit it on the head. LeBron has every right to be mad at Stephen A. when you say, as a father, heart-to-heart part. But at the same time, LeBron James Jr. is a professional basketball player. He walked across the stage and put the hat on. He shook Adam Silver's hand. That means you're, susceptible for necessarily criticism, but your game can be dissected. And if we're going to make such a big deal about, Bronny scores his first points, make such a big deal with, look, the first father-son duo to take the court at the same time. Some of those things aren't necessarily the coverage that a regular G leaguer gets, you feel me? So some of the other side of that is critiquing them whenever it's not looking so good.
I have some poll
But I also
results.
got a question. I wanted to pose a question for all the daughters in the building. How do you feel about the LeBron James Stephen A. Situation?
Oh, thanks for asking, Juju. I really appreciate that. I feel like I'm kind of with Mike on it, where I'm like, this is all just I don't need to deal with this right now. Like some of it's just silly. I do feel a little bad for Bronny because he didn't ask for any of this, but I said that this morning, and then everyone yelled at me because I tried to show a little bit of empathy for Bronny. Yes, Billy.
We were yelling at Ethan because he's annoying.
Oh, that's fine. Understandable. It would be hard to be the son of the most famous basketball player of all time. At the same time, he's a millionaire, so that's not that hard. At least, you have financial security for the rest of your life. So I don't know. I see a lot of sides of it, but I do kind of feel bad for him being stuck in the middle.
I can't agree that he didn't ask for any of this. I think Bronny, in effect, asked for all of this because when he chooses to follow his father's footsteps, knowing who his father is, he knew exactly what he was getting into. Okay, he knows that if he's not a superstar instantly, that there's going to be the Stephen A. Smith type comment. You can't say he didn't know what he was getting into.
But Greg, it's probably what he's best at, and he's made like $8 million going down that road as a professional. That's a very successful career.
I would also say, Greg, I think that like when you're someone who's a college basketball player, you're probably aware, especially when your dad's LeBron James, like you're aware of what it's like to be constantly talked about in the media. But then when you're actually experiencing it and feeling the negativity of it, it probably is a lot worse than what you were expecting. I would imagine. I don't know. Chris can probably speak to this a little bit.
It's hard. It's really hard.
Mike Ryan says he's got some polls to update. You mentioned Elon Musk, Juju. I saw that Mike Myers has now been playing Elon Musk on Saturday Night Live. What has Mike Myers done recently? I saw him on Inglourious Bastards, and it seems like over the last 7 years, I haven't seen Mike Myers doing much of anything. What has he been doing?
Love guru.
He hasn't been doing much of anything. Here are the polls, poll results courtesy of Instagram because X is having all sorts of issues. If someone is dabbling in beer and hookah at midnight, do you assume that they are also snacking? Dan was on to something. 93% of our audience says yes. Here's the next poll question. Bob loves Chicago Bulls. Let's go.
Greg.
68% of our audience said yes.
You are packing up and ready to go, and you hit the microphone while packing up and ready to go. You have proven to be one who wants to be going for about 25 minutes.
That's untrue.
Liar. Do you still use the word underpants? 70% of the audience said no.
Juju, do you have any polls that you would like to update, or is Mike doing that for you today because of your Twitter issues?
Yeah, no, I upload the polls into the Instagram feed as well. So I have those as well. But like I said, so with the Elon shipping on X, it was taking me a bit of time to get it together. Plus, my building's internet went out for a little while today. It's a crazy day in the Juju Gotti household.
It's a crazy day.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, and I validate that my Twitter's not working either. It'll always be Twitter to me. I'll tell you that. But he's right.
Is that a song?
He's just petered out.
Mike Myers really hasn't had to do anything after Shrek, huh? Because, like, it's Shrek, Shrek 2, Shrek the Third, Shrek the Halls, Shrekless.
He's made, like,
Shrek
little...
Forever After, Donkey's Caroling Christmas-tacular, Shrek's Yule Log, Shrek's Thrilling Tales, DreamWorks Shrek Swamp Stories, Shrek 5 is coming. I mean, I think he found his niche, ogre.
He did have, like, a small role in Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yep. Yes, he did.
Hell yeah. Also, over the weekend, I've been getting a lot of people hitting me up saying that they checked out the TV show Paradise, and they've been telling me, like, thank you for that because it's a great show.
So good.
So it inspired me to give my top 10 TV shows of 2024 that I can think of.
Okay.
That I can think of.
All right.
Something shocking happened back here. I think this is happening. Jess had no idea.
Mike, if you 5 minutes ago, if you were like, I'm going to take all of your money unless you tell me right now who Shrek is, I'd be like, Jim.
You're learning.
And I think we've done this before on the show. I think I found out Mike Myers was Shrek like 3 years ago, and my mind was blown. And then we just did it again 5 minutes ago because I did not retain it.
She turned and she goes, wait, Mike Myers is Shrek? And me and Mike just looked at her like, that's a bad joke. And then she was like, no, this is for real.
No,
like,
I
you
showed
didn't
them
know
my
this.
computer. I Googled it.
You know, was going to be Shrek?
John Lithgow was Lord Farquaad?
Yeah.
I mean, that one, he couldn't sound more like John Lithgow.
Wait till you find out who Fiona was.
Chris Farley was supposed to be Shrek,
Fiona?
but his passing delayed the project entirely and then became a CGI picture with Mike Myers.
Nice. OLI, top 10 TV shows. Bad Monkey. Great show, great comedy from my brother Bill Lawrence. Vince Vaughn, I see you. Another OLI, The Landman with Billy Bob Thornton. Pretty good show. Check it out if you can. Last OLI, Yellow Jackets. Those girls be tripping.
Put it on the poll. Yellow Jackets, those girls be tripping. Yes or no? At Le Batard Show. Number 10.
Number 10, Dark Matter from Apple Plus.
Number 9.
Different universes, different worlds. Number 9, Disclaimer from Apple Plus.
Oh, I thought you were making a disclaimer. Okay.
Look at Juju's hitting the Apple Plus hard.
Yes, sir. Number 8, Mr. and Mrs. Smith from Hulu.
By the way, Shrek is like the MASH of Gen Z, Greg.
Okay.
Just so you understand.
I'm still waiting for a CBS show over here. What's going on?
Matlock.
Number 7.
Number 7.
Shogun from Hulu. CBS had the Landman and Yellow Jackets as well.
Ah, there you go.
You dig it?
I do dig it.
Number 6, Lady in the Lake. Apple TV, I see you. Number 5, Fallout. Great show. Number 4, The Penguin. Yes, sir, Ski.
Colin Farrell says he's not going to do that again. He's no longer interested in doing that because, at least in part, because of how long it took to do the makeup every day. That seems a terrible decision by Colin Farrell to spend hours every day in makeup.
That's what Myles Garrett said, and Charles Barkley. He'll be back.
Number 3, Presumed Innocent.
That one's good.
Hell yeah.
Fell
Jake
apart at the
Gyllenhaal.
end, though. I'm afraid that Paradise is going to fall apart at the end because as much as I like so far, I'm 4 episodes in, and the way the 4th episode ended is genuinely shocking. Like the last 10 minutes in the 4th episode are crazy, but the writing was so awkward in some of the places in episode 2 and 3 that I'm afraid it's going to fall apart. Have you seen it all the way through, Juju? Have you seen Paradise all the way through?
Yes, sir, I did.
Does it fall
Yes,
apart
sir.
or does it stay together until the very end?
It stays together, in my opinion. It's 8 episodes, you feel me? They got re-up for season 2, so I think they got to get in the lab and get it going, but it hasn't fallen apart just yet.
Like, I have my notes on it, but overall, like, it's a great experience. I watched the whole season, and you leave it, and you're like, yeah, that was good.
I was told that episode 7, which I have not seen yet, rivals episode 7 of The Bear in terms of some of the best television you will see as the dramatic tensions rise. I have not seen episode 7. Is it what it's promised by the both of you who have seen the whole thing? You guys say that that's the best episode of the 8 episodes?
Yes, for sure, 100%.
Because 1 and 4 are really strong. Like
I mean, the ending of 1, like, I would put 1 in there too, but yes, like 7 is just like you don't stop. You're like, holy shit.
Number 2, Paradise. You dig it? And number 1, the top TV show of 2024 that I can think of, The Day of the Jackal. Great show.
Ahead of Paradise. You're putting something ahead of Paradise.
Yes, sir.
Juju, thank you. When you mentioned CBS before, were you making a distinction between CBS and Paramount? Because I'm guessing that Greg Cody has not made any leap from however it is he consumes CBS to how he would have to consume Paramount.
Right, that's right. CBS Channel 4. That's all I know.
Shout out to Ghosts.
Yeah.
It's safe.
That's all I want to know.
Shout out to Channel 4 and just generally walking into graveyards when you're vacationing.
Correct.
Eddie Murphy is Donkey?